Hello and welcome to season 6, episode 1 of the Sausage Factory after a long hiatus in which I think Orc was prisoned at least 3 or 4 times during our hiatus, but he's back. He's on new medicines. He's good to go. He's good to go. He's medicated and he's ready. So yeah, welcome to season 6 of the Sausage Factory. I'm your moderator, Pizzal. Joining me tonight, I have got B-Movie Mike. How's it going, Mike?
Hey, what's up, guys? Season 6, what is it, like 137, 138 episodes? Holy crap. I mean, there was a lot of people doing this when we started, and they're no longer doing it. So I'd like to thank you guys for hanging in there. This is a lot of fun, and I look forward to many more.
Yeah, absolutely. The syndication money will be rolling in anytime soon. So, But yeah, I mean, I echo that sentiment. Thank you to all of you out there in Sausage Factory Nation who've watched us throughout the years. I mean, because we've been doing this show since 2015, maybe 14, 13.
Yeah.
Jeez, 130 something episodes, man. That's awesome. Wow. But also with me tonight is Cole. How are you, Cole?
I'm just reflecting on all we've done, and my God, we've gotten old. But that's okay. We'll just keep going forward, I think. I like how for just the very start of the season, you got right to the core issue right away. You didn't do any pleasantries or bullshit beforehand. You got right to the Orc issue and let everybody know that he's back and he's doing well. And I know that's what everybody's wondering. They didn't want any platitudes, so you know how to run the show.
Yep.
He's back. He's handing out pink slips all over the place.
Right to the heart of the matter, we've got a new Orc here this season.
Take charge.
Yes, exactly. We have got the office manager, the human resources director, this is a whole new Orc, people. A whole new Orc. And Orc, how are you, sir?
Doing fucking dank as always. I'm wounded. I'm a wounded as a TSF veteran. But I'm making a comeback. I've been here for years. Don't call it a comeback. Is basically what I'm saying.
Well, a lot of people are saying, this is a comeback. Orc is back. Orc is back, and I'm saying, Orc never went anywhere. He's always been here.
Yeah, dude. I was never gone, but I'm back. I'm the new behind the mask. It's coming for you. No.
Okay.
All right, well, okay, let's just fucking cut that. Okay, let's just redo this. Woo! I'm back!
Well, tell us how the health is. How's the back? How's the recovery process going? I'm sure everybody has been on pins and needles this whole summer. Wondering?
It's pretty dank, best month of the year. I get to have surgery. Gonna gut me open like a fat pig, and then we'll go from there. And yeah.
Okay. Hashtag pray for Orc. His surgery is coming up. It is a penile implant, correct?
Yep. I'm gonna get breast implants too. I got kind of big tits going on, but
get some extras thrown in there.
I thought in honor of Hugh Hefner, rest in peace. I'd get bigger tits because being in the late '90s and seeing the Pamela tape, that's what turned you to the next level. That's for a lot of us. DJ Donnelly, you don't know what I'm talking about, but you'll find out soon in life.
What did Hef have to do with that? Hef had nothing to do with that, did he?
Well, I mean, he promoted the memes, and then
he created the culture.
Yeah.
It led to such a situation, we'll say.
Okay.
When's the last time anyone bought a Playboy? I haven't bought a Playboy in like 25 years.
You know where you find them? Is at truck stops, kind of near Rambo's house.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
In the Midwest.
They're everywhere around here. You go in Walmart, they're just plastered all over. You go to a gas station, go to
Get a
McDonald's.
Playboy, get you a lot lizard, you're good to go.
When you go to McDonald's, you order a burger, they give you a Playboy for free.
In 2015, though, didn't they?
They stopped doing nude layouts, but then they brought it back.
Wow. That makes sense, though, that they brought it back. Because, otherwise they were just basically committing suicide. That was their whole point.
Well, I mean,
you couldn't find a good article in there every once in a while. Sure, you could. They had lots of good writers that be like, "Oh, I did a piece for Playboy," because that sort of had some had some panache to it.
Well, I mean, that's how Stephen King got his start. That's how many great Stephen King short stories were first published. Were in men's magazines,
Yeah, and you had guys like Norman Mailer and stuff writing articles and stuff, and it was very cool. I think that's the only thing. I don't have anything against Hugh Hefner or anything. as far as I know, he was probably a mostly good guy, but I just feel like he held on to that shit way too long. Like, he created sort of a cool culture. He helped break down barriers and bring sort of sex into the mainstream and show people that it's not a bad thing and, you know, shouldn't be feared and demonized and stuff like that, which is all great. But I think, you know, he probably should have reached a stopping point a lot earlier. I think, but you understand why a guy in his position would keep it going, because I mean, you know, let the good times roll. I'm Hugh Hefner.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, you know,
I mean, I get it.
There was a lot of life in those 91 years. So I mean, don't cry for Hef, man. He had a good run.
Like 91.
91.
What I'd love to spend a day in those slippers, man.
And the robe. I mean, it's a badass robe.
There you go.
I wouldn't need the robe. No robe.
Oh man, R.I.P. Hef, man. A legend. A legend.
I saw it last
stock
night
in Viagra.
when the news broke last night. I saw a bunch of people tweeting like, "Yeah, don't forget Hugh Hefner was a huge asshole."
Exploiting
all this
women
stuff about like feminist stuff, and I'm like, man, let him like get in the ground first.
Man.
There's a time and a place. You know?
I don't know. I don't
I mean,
take
get on
that.
your soapbox. You know,
It just
a week
seems
from
like
now.
for every person that says like he exploited women, there's a bunch of women that worked directly under him that said he did no such thing. So I don't know.
Mhm.
I think he provided career opportunities for some women that wouldn't have had them otherwise. So I don't know.
Didn't his
it's
daughter
something
run the
to get.
magazine for like the past like couple
Yeah.
decades?
Yep.
So I mean,
Family business.
Yep. Moving on. Also with me tonight is Rambo Raff. How you doing, Rambo?
Doing all right. Just getting over some allergies with the eyes, but doing okay today.
Good. It's that time of year where my allergies and sinuses just go off the wall too. So
Yeah.
and with me tonight as well is Jay the Stingray. How you doing, Stingray?
what's up, guys? Happy to be here. Kick off season 6 with a bang.
Are we not no beverage tonight?
Uh-oh. I don't think he's gonna last more than like a half hour.
Wow, no beverage.
You off the coffee, man?
No, I'm out.
Oh,
damn.
There's a big
Better call your
difference.
dealer.
that is
This just in Fox News.
Because you know that dang shit you've been drinking, you can't get on the street.
I'll start getting the shakes. You guys know what's up.
Well, I mean, how have you guys been? How were your summers? You seen any good movies lately? Let's play catch up. We've been away for a while. How have you guys been?
All right.
Busy? Hot?
So enthusiastic.
Yeah.
I know.
So go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say I know Mike had a bit of a storm in his area there for a while,
I
and
might have heard
A
something.
little bit of water.
yeah, he's made it through. He's here. He's in one piece. So,
But I have a total of 11 years of living in Florida, so it wasn't my first rodeo. It was probably my 9th or 10th hurricane. So
Currently, his home is floating. So
I live in an area
In a
that
boat.
wasn't affected as badly, so I actually escaped.
that's good.
You know, I had 15 hours without power, which isn't anything. You know, it went out at like 9 p.m. and it was on at noon the next day. It really wasn't that big of a deal for me. Some people though got screwed, but I'm glad we're getting back to normal, and hopefully that's it for this year. We don't need any more of that shit, and I really feel bad for the people in the Caribbean, especially Puerto Rico. They're really going through some heavy shit right now. So
yeah.
you know, don't worry about us. Focus attention on them, because I think people are taking up donations. You can send different things. You want to get a hold of Red Cross, or I know my apartment complex is taking donations. Yeah, they really need help. So if you can do that, that'd be cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, have you guys seen any good movies lately?
So I thought I'd just briefly say, like, every September here in Halifax, they have the Atlantic Film Festival, known as Finn internationally for some stupid reason. But and every year it sneaks up on me, like it takes me by surprise. I'm like, oh shit, because I always mean to do more and see more and stuff, and then it's always sort of like last minute. I realize it's already happening, and tickets to a lot of the shows are expensive because, well, I mean, you want to support because a lot of it is like independent stuff from around here. They show international stuff too, but there's a lot of Canadian stuff and even local stuff. So I never wind up getting to as much. But the big one I'll say is, and they often have like special screenings of stuff. I remember a couple years I said I was upset because some of the screenings you could only get to if you had like the VIP pass that let you into certain events. And I didn't get to see, what was it? They did a special screening of the controversial British film, The Devils from the early 70s. And we talked about that. But anyway, so this was a really good one that I was definitely going to get in to see. And that was, I think they said they're the only festival in the world doing it besides the Fantasia Film Festival, as they were going to show the restored print of Suspiria uncut. So I got to go see that last Wednesday night, which was really awesome and stuff. With a nice big crowd, people always come up with this. And the guy that introduced it was really enthusiastic about it. He was one of the guys on the committee, and years ago he'd been in New Brunswick. He was a theater manager, and he said for some reason in 1977 they got that movie and they showed it, and it like blew his mind and stuff. And he said for like a long time even before they ever did a restoration or anything, like he would talk to the committee and be like, I really think that we should do a screening of this. And he said he was always bugging them out and stuff like that. And he talked about what the new restoration was like. About, I guess he knew the guy from Synapse that was part of it, and he talked about like why it took so long, because when they found the original negatives, which was owned by I don't know if it's a cinematographer on the film, but something like that, somebody in that capacity, and he's still alive, he's super old, and he had them. And I guess the negatives were just every inch was covered in fingerprints, which is why it took so long. So it took them almost 4 years to clean it up and do it properly. Now, I've never seen, I'm trying to think, I've seen it on TV and on DVD, but seeing it in theater, like I could hear things on the soundtrack I never heard before, like a lot more of like the whispering and stuff that goes on. I could really hear a lot of that during, so that was really cool. So anyway, obviously that was a great experience, and I'll just really quickly say that a few nights before that, I wanted to pick a local movie, so I saw a movie made by a director named Seth Smith, who is from Nova Scotia, here where I live, and he did a movie a few years ago called Low Life. It was sort of like a trippy sort of drug hallucination type film that in 2012 I never saw it, but got him some buzz. Anyway, this was a horror movie called The Crescent. Kind of standard setup. You got a young woman who's got like a 3-year-old, and it's right after her husband dies in some accident, and then she goes to stay in this little cottage place out, kind of isolated out by the ocean, and weird stuff starts to happen type thing. But I mean, cool low budget stuff. Had some stuff that I think somebody like oh shit, can't think of his name. The Canadian director who did all the body horror stuff.
Cronenberg,
of course. He had some effects in there, done by some local people that I think Cronenberg would have been proud of. Anyway, it was a cool little movie. It was called The Crescent. And what was really fun, well, just really quickly, is I had to go to Suspiria alone, couldn't get a hold of Ryan. And so I went there alone. When I sat down right next to the director of The Crescent. So I got to talk to him for a few minutes about stuff before there. He just happened to be there, and he was a cool guy. So anyway, been, after not doing too much film-wise, it's been a good couple weeks. And last night I got to see Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, the Studio Ghibli film, on the big screen too. So had some good movies to see in theater lately.
Well, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing the 4K restoration of Suspiria, because Don May Jr. from Synapse has been working on that thing for
that's the name. Thank you.
Years and years and years, and he does such great work on those transfers and those restorations that I'm sure it's going to look phenomenal. So I'm really looking forward to checking that out. Has anybody else seen anything good lately?
It's funny because this week I was going to catch up on Toby Hooper, but I didn't, because not really a movie, but something on YouTube I found. This guy named the Mexican Runner. He did on Twitch, and he's uploaded on YouTube. He did a 3-year process. Without save states, he completed every single Nintendo game, over 700.
Wow.
It was a 3-year process. Wow. If it's a game I never played, it was no hints or anything. He did it on stream. Every single one was on stream. So I've been just watching his stuff on a marathon. Just seemed like a cool idea and pretty fun so far. So I've been sort of addicted to that.
Some of those are so hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
So hard.
They did not, games today are,
no.
I've heard a lot of people talk about the campaign on Destiny 2 being like, if you die on the campaign of Destiny 2, you should not be playing video games. You must be blind, or what I mean? Because it's like so easy. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I know. Nowadays we have like settings. Sometimes you can go to like an ultra hard setting, but I mean, back in the day, it was that. That was it. You didn't have an option. You couldn't tone it down. You couldn't pull it back. It was.
those.
That
Come on, game cheating.
You had 3 lives, and the difficulty was fuck you.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That was
it
video
really
games
was.
back in the day.
Yeah.
I mean, some of them to the point where it's completely unfair, like Battletoads. Like, remember Battletoads, like where you're like racing on the thing? Like, literally, if it was your first time through that stage, there would be at least 3 or 4 places where it would be impossible. You would actually have to know when the jump or whatever was coming because no human reaction could actually fathom it. You'd have to be anticipating it. And they did that in like at least 2 levels of the original Battletoads.
It's funny you mention that name because that same guy, he does world records on Battletoads.
Wow. Yeah.
Speed runs. So
I remember Battletoads being just like excruciatingly difficult. Ninja Gaiden.
Yeah.
Oh god, there were so many. Like I just would have to stop playing. You know what I mean? It's like there's crazy.
Even back into the mid '90s, it took me 50 tries to beat the end boss on Donkey Kong Country. It was just brutal. I mean, I had a friend that was a Super Nintendo freak, and he had Super Mario Brothers, and he found the glitch where you kept kicking the shell against the stairs to get extra lives.
Oh yeah.
You had to find little glitches like that just to be able. You would memorize the levels, and that's how you had to get through them. Like Cole said, you had to memorize everything so you could anticipate it.
To this day, I know where every hidden thing is in the original Mario. Like I know how to go not hit any of the blocks until the right block to get the coin bopper. Like that's ingrained in my head forever. You know, from all those years ago. Even though I can't tell you the last time I actually played the original Mario Brothers, but I mean, if I do, I remember where everything is because that's what my brain deemed important.
Yeah,
to hold on to.
Has anybody? I know Orc, I know Stingray, I know you guys saw it, but Mike and Rambo, you had not. I think you had no desire to.
No.
Mike, Cole, have you seen it?
Yep,
I've seen it. Yes.
Okay, what were your thoughts, Mike?
I liked it. Just overall, I enjoyed the film. I thought it was good. I thought it had some pacing issues. But the book, a lot of reviews I've seen about the movie since I've seen it have said that it's pretty much close to the source material. So if you think it has, ADD, well, that's because the source material does. There's all different kinds of things going on, and it does kind of seem like a bunch of different events that are kind of sewn together. The only thing that really diminished it for me was the 2 guys who created Stranger Things had lobbied to direct this film because this film had been in development for like 7 or 8 years. And of course, they were turned down, and they went on to create Stranger Things. One of the kids from Stranger Things is in it, and I can't help but feel, for me, it kind of diminished the impact of the movie because I've seen the first season of Stranger Things. There was some similarities there that kind of, I don't know, maybe the movie would have been more impactful because it kind of felt like Stranger Things the movie, in a way.
Yeah, I could agree with that to an extent. It's
not really in a bad way. It was just kind of like, I don't know, Stranger Things was so good at what it did that, the movie didn't, it was equal to it, but it just seemed kind of like, like more of the same. As far as Pennywise goes, I thought the guy did a great job. I mean, Tim Curry is Tim Curry. You're not going to get somebody to act like him. And he said, I cannot out Tim Curry. So I'm just going to take this in a different direction. The only bad thing about that is Tim Curry played the clown at first to attract the kids and then but this guy was like intense and scary the whole time. I don't know. There was no, I don't know. There was no friendliness to him. He was just like a demon. He was just all men. And the fact that it was created by New Line Cinema, I did get some Nightmare on Elm Street feelings from it. And I guess at one point they thought about putting Freddy Krueger in the movie and then decided, no, that wouldn't be a good idea. And I agree with them. That would have been a very bad idea because it already felt enough like a Nightmare on Elm Street, but not really in a bad way. It just, I don't know. I really liked it. I would recommend it, but it's not perfect. But I did enjoy it. I liked how they changed some of the monsters. Like in the original, it was Wolfman. But that was because it took place in the 50s. This takes place in the 80s. So that was a good upgrade. I thought that was a good idea.
It was a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I liked the haunted house thing at the end. Some people complained about that, but I thought that was pretty cool. I liked the it layer and how it became crazy at the end. I don't know. I enjoyed it. I had a good time.
What'd you think, Cole?
Okay, I'll try to keep it brief because it's a movie that I was anticipating, and I love the book, and I was always so disenchanted and disappointed by the miniseries. Even though the miniseries, as we've discussed before, it's hard to put too much blame on them. They were so limited in what they could do and stuff. So it was just nice to see like the gloves off here. The kids are cursing. The dialogue is good. It's updated. It's not what it is in the book, but it's done. It's the same spirit. Jay and I were talking about it a little bit. We had a discussion. It's like it's updated to it's 1989 now, and the kids talk and the way they talk, I really enjoyed it. I thought all the kids were good. I wasn't too happy with the girl they cast as Beverly. I didn't think she gave a bad performance. She just physically and the way she looked and sounded and stuff didn't seem right. And she had she had a certain amount of confidence that I don't recall from a character that I thought was a little out of place, but wasn't a big deal. But I mean, the strongest point of the movie for me was probably the kids, in that, especially the ones that played Richie and Eddie. They had such a great back and forth. Richie just, nothing's off limits, and he just says stuff, whatever comes out of his mouth. And Eddie being the hypochondriac and being, a bit of the wuss and all the mama's boy and all that stuff. I thought that was really well done. Orc, you're getting really distracting. You know that? We're on episode 1. Episode 1. But anyway, but I mean, I was really happy to see, like, it didn't hold back. Kids were in danger. Stuff was going to happen. They were going to show stuff. I mean, in the original, well, not the original, but in the miniseries, anytime violence was basically even implied, they had to like skip the scene.
Yeah.
Like we said, I like the update. I mean, I guess they only put in the 80s just so that the next one can be set basically now, which is fine. I'm less interested. I always thought the kids stuff was better in the book anyway. Like, so I always was fine with the fact that instead of trying to jump back and forth, they're going to do it in 2 separate halves. That works for me. But yeah, I liked it. It had moments like of genuine, malice and sinister and scariness and stuff like that. And I thought the musical choices were pretty good. It had a really good look. My only complaint is it's about 2 hours and 15 minutes, so it's not a short movie, but I could have used just maybe about 15, 20 minutes more to get some more scenes in there. I remember Jay and I also said it felt like some of the kids got a little shortchanged on scene time, especially my favorite character from the books is probably Mike. Mike, since he comes in late, you don't get to see him very much, which is too bad. And there's just a few little changes that I don't understand why they did it. Like Mike's backstory, like his parents dying. I don't know why they had to do that, or why Henry's dad is suddenly a cop, which I think is worse because that gives him a little respect in the town. The whole point is Henry is part of, like, his dad is just a drunk and he doesn't have any respect. So now it's like, where does Henry's anger even come from? Because, I mean, the kid who did it was a little over the top, but I liked it because, I mean, still, yeah, the whole point is, yeah, Henry's not your average bully. He really is. There's something really wrong with him, like, is the point, which I like. So, but anyway, I really liked the movie. It gave me some hope. And there's very few Stephen King adaptations I feel are high quality, and I think this is one of the 3 or 4 that exist. So I was really happy with it because the book has always meant a lot to me. So, I mean, I will see the second part because I care, but really this wasn't made for me. This is what I cared about. I cared about the kid's story, and yeah, little problems here and there. Some stuff I wish they had a little more of, like the scene where they go to the movies together in the book isn't there. Well, it's not the whole group, but it's only part of them. And
I wish the rock fight had been in there. That's one of my favorite parts of the book.
It's there. It's just fast, right?
Well, yeah,
It just
doesn't
really quick.
Like, they didn't hold off on how brutal and dangerous it could be, but it was too quick. It should have been a little longer. I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
But
they also changed the backstory on Mike. He was the historian in the book and in the miniseries, and they gave that to Ben, which kind of gave. Why was Mike even there? They kind of took away his purpose for even being there in a way, and it kind of almost made him token.
That was a little.
I was disappointed with the Mike
weird.
thing. Mike was always my favorite character.
And it was another thing. They didn't really play up the fact that the adults knew about it and were in on it, and that's why they were ignoring it. Because when the kid was getting beat up and getting carved on by the bully, those people just drove by and just like ignored it. They looked at him and kept going. And the reason they couldn't take him to the hospital, why they were breaking in and stealing the medical supplies to fix up their friend, why didn't they take him to the hospital? Well, they should have played up the fact that the adults knew what was going on because supposedly they had made some kind of a deal with Pennywise that they wouldn't interfere or he would kill the whole town or something.
Okay, so that's not accurate, though.
But that's kind of how they played it, but they didn't really go far enough with it.
The idea
why did they not take him to the hospital?
That there's something about the whole presence that sort of makes them blind to stuff. It's not actually an understanding or a deal.
The town itself.
That part wasn't necessarily explained well, though, because normally you would take your friend to the hospital. Well, there should have been a reason for not taking him to the hospital, or they should have been turned away at the hospital. I don't. There's just little things like that would have made their situation a little more dire. That there is no help from the adults. We are on our own. That was kind of implied, but not really fleshed out.
I thought it was fine. It didn't bother me. I mean, I've had my issues with some of it, but not that part really. But yeah, I can see that.
Okay.
My biggest complaint was the fact that they are doing it in 2 movies instead of telling the story at the same time the way the book does it. I understand it may be hard to do in a film, and obviously it would be longer than this one is, but that's one of the aspects I like about the book the most is that it is going on at the same time. The present day, 1985, and with the kids as well.
Well, I know
the narrative jumps back and forth in the book throughout.
In chapter 2, they're supposed to do a lot of that, where they'll have the adults, but then there'll be flashbacks to the kids. So it's going to go kind of back and forth. And
that's how the book's written.
And speaking of Mike, according to the director, Mike is going to be like a junkie in chapter 2.
No, oh shit.
Oh, that's awful. Yeah, and I was going to say, even if they do it right, like as I said, like I don't mind that they split it up because it tells the kids stuff so well, but I feel like it's really going to expose how weak the adult stuff is. We're going to I
always thought
the adult stuff is really weak in comparison.
I always thought it was interesting how the other Losers Club members all left Derry, and they all became wealthy. A couple of them became like famous. They were all really well off. Mike stayed behind. Mike is not well off, and Mike has noticeably aged quite a bit more.
But making him like a junkie is overdoing it. He's just supposed to be like a small town librarian.
The words he used were he used the word junkie.
I don't like that at all.
I guess that's where we're going to find Mike in chapter 2.
Wasn't he the one that noticed that it was coming back, and he kind of sounded the alarm and contacted all of his friends?
Because he's the one that stayed.
Well, he kept ties on everyone, so he knew what was going on. He's kind of the one that brought everybody.
And since he didn't leave, he didn't forget completely the way they did. Like they all forgot. Him staying there, he didn't remember completely, but he could remember it more than they could, enough to.
So that's why they don't make him a junkie, because he can't forget, and it's all this stuff in his head. So he's got to wipe away the pain.
I guess they could do it, but I don't like it. I'm
guessing that's why they're doing it.
I know. I know. I know. I'm just saying. I think of Mike as a strong character, so I don't want to see him like this, reduce him to that,
Yeah. He explains in the miniseries in part 2 how he had gone through some difficult times, and he went back down into the sewer looking for the gold, for the silver things, and he was like, I didn't care if it woke up and killed me, I didn't care. So I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. We'll see.
I think the child actors are probably my favorite part of the film, and
like Mike
really said, the kid, whatever, he's got a crazy name. The kid that's in Stranger Things and
Wolfhard.
Whatever. I'm not saying that bullshit. But that kid, he was playing such a different character that it didn't take me out completely. Because he's playing Richie, so he's like wisecracking the whole time, which I thought they did a good job with that.
Mm-hmm. That didn't really affect me. That didn't really
I've never
remind
seen
me
that
of Stranger Things either.
Yeah.
The characters were different enough, but it just seemed like preteens or early teens riding around on bikes trying to kill a monster.
Yeah, well,
it's pretty much Stranger Things.
But it did it first. I mean, this is just an adaptation. It was written in 1982, so.
But these guys kind of beat him to the punch. It's almost like I wish they would have let them.
Yeah, I know, and that's what I said.
I think they would have done a great job.
Because my play apparently is Stranger Things, which is why I fucking hate it.
They wouldn't have to just rip off Stranger Things. Rip off Stephen King. They would be doing Stephen King instead of just ripping him off really hard.
Exactly.
They're doing the Stranger Things.
I think the film for me would have had more of an impact had it been.
Hell, the logo for Stranger Things is.
That's another reason to not watch Stranger Things. I was already not going to watch it, but now I really don't like it.
The logo for Stranger Things is like a Stephen King, title or logo kind of
look. Isn't it the way he writes his name with the Stephen across the top, and
then that's true.
I mean, clearly the influence is there. So,
But anyway, I was mostly really happy. Like, you know, I have super low expectations for any sort of adaptation of King's work. We have 30 years worth of mediocre garbage with a few little highlights, as far as I'm concerned. When it comes to this stuff, so like, and this has always been near and dear to my heart. It's in my top 3 of his favorite books, with The Stand and Salem's Lot. So it was really important to me that this be done well, and for the most part, it really was.
Well, speaking of The Stand and Salem's Lot, I heard that those will be the next Stephen King remakes.
Well, this gives me hope that now they're gonna, you know, take it seriously. You know, good budget, good, you know. I realize because a lot of the old ones, yeah, they were made for TV and they were cheap and hammy and they had to cut everything out and they didn't have good actors and all this stuff. And I mean, it gives me hope because some of the stuff he writes is fairly like deep and epic, and it's nice to see it given that treatment because, you know, Stephen King is not an amazing writer, but he's a good writer. And I think if you watch like a lot of like his movies from the 80s and 90s and you hadn't read his books, you would just think he's schlocky as hell. You'd be like, wow, these are just a bunch of lame, shallow characters. Everybody's a stupid stereotype. Oh, there's the alcoholic, and there, you know. And I mean, that's a little bit true, but not to the extent that you would get by just watching those movies. Like you read the books and you realize, oh, okay, actually, most of his characters are actually pretty good, have some depth and stuff, and you just don't get a sense of that at all in a lot of those earlier movies.
I want to see these kids bang. That's it.
7 pages of
Come on, director's cut, as we said.
Yeah, I was explaining that to my girlfriend after we watched the movie. Like, you know, in
There's
the
no
book
way
after
to explain it. You can't explain it.
Yeah. I'm like, you know, she has sex with all of them after they defeat Pennywise. You know, so one after the other. She's like, oh, okay, well that's a bonding, you know, moment.
Well, yeah, she gets it. There you go.
with graphical depictions of what their individual penises feel like.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
I did not know that.
Wow. Spoiler alert, Ben gives it to her.
It's kind of like King doesn't really have a high horse to be on. It's like, have you read some of the shit you wrote, man? Wasn't one of the bullies gives somebody a hand job or...
Yeah.
There's all kinds of... It's just like, he's like, I can't write a sequel to It because Pennywise is too scary. No, maybe he allows you to think thoughts that scare the shit out of you because they're in your brain.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because these characters give writers license to just kind of, well, that's not me, that's the character. Well, those kind of things aren't in a normal person's brain. I don't think I've ever sat around and thought about 13-year-olds having a gangbang. That's never been a thought I've ever had.
Like 10.
That's just taken it too seriously.
I think they're only 10 years old.
11 in the book. 13 in the movie, 11 in the book.
Cocaine
Yeah, so-
time bomb.
I've written all sorts of sick shit. I'll just let everybody know. So if anybody, you know, I'm not famous for it.
Well,
As far as the cop dad, I kind of felt like he was trying to toughen his son up because maybe he realized that Pennywise was coming around soon and he wanted to give his kid a fighting chance. So maybe that's why in the movie it was implying that's maybe why he was such a dick to him, because he thought maybe if he made his kid into a tough ass, a real piece of shit asshole, he might be able to survive his encounter. I don't know. That seemed kind of an interesting possibility.
No, he's supposed to survive. So I have no idea what they were doing there because he looked pretty dead to me. But maybe they'll make him survive. They didn't show his body, so
Yeah, that's true.
big spoilers there, people.
I
Henry,
don't think they made Henry Bowers unlikable enough.
even though in every scene he's just screaming with rage and hate.
Yeah, I'm talking about in the movie.
I know. I mean, in the movie.
Yeah,
I think he was
he's
pretty unlikable.
goddamn scarier than it though.
Yeah.
What's weird is like they chose not to use one of his best lines because in the wake of the rock fight, like when his friends abandon him, he's just like dazed on the ground and they're all in front of him. In for whatever reason in the movie they chose to give him no dialogue there, even though in the book, and it's just very simple, he just says like, I'll kill you. I'll kill all of you, and then he runs away. Like that would I was just like, he's not saying anything. He's just looking at them dumbfounded, and then the scene ends. And I was like, why didn't they have that line? But you know, again, we're gonna be here forever if I start getting into shit like that.
Well, let me go ahead and explain to the viewers kind of what we have in store here over the next 3 weeks on the Sausage Factory. We are doing a 3-part tribute to the horror master, George Romero. In this episode, we're going to be discussing the Dead series, the seminal Dead series. In episode 2, we'll be discussing the rest of Mr. Romero's filmography. And then in episode 3, we're going to do a live commentary of one of Romero's 3 Big Dead movies. But we're going to let you out there in Sausage Factory Nation choose which one that we watch and discuss. So there's a link in the description. Follow that link, go over to my website and vote on which one of Romero's big 3 zombie films you want to watch us do a live commentary for. Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, or Day of the Dead. That link is in the description. Go over and place your vote now.
Cool. I hope it's not night.
It could be.
It's not night.
I'd be fine with any of them.
I don't want to be such an asshole because I don't like that movie. I'm like the only person on earth that don't like that movie, but I'm sure we'll get to that.
So that's the next 3 weeks of Sausage Factory episodes, people. We are doing the Dead series tonight. We are talking about the rest of George Romero's filmography next week, and then the week following, a live commentary. You pick which one of George Romero's big 3 Dead movies, night, dawn, or day, you want to see us do a live commentary for. Follow the link in the description and go
Yes,
vote.
Big Day. Make it easy on me, Big Day.
Well, let's
say to kind of segue from it to Romero, we talked about in the green room where he was actually involved in the production of the miniseries at the beginning. He did a rewrite on the script when it was supposed to be about 10 hours, and when they cut it down to what it was, he abandoned the project. But he was good friends with King, obviously, Creepshow and various other things he was involved with him. But he often lamented that he wanted to do what King did, like create the Castle Rock universe where all the characters were kind of intertwined and spoken about in other projects. But he could never do that because his films were owned by various different companies and he could never get the rights back, which went on to affect the later films. And that really upset him, but he kind of just went forward with it anyway and did the best he could.
Well, who wants to get the ball rolling? Who wants to get things started by discussing Night of the Living Dead? Anybody? Mike, you want to give us the professor,
sure.
Mike?
I guess it's kind of appropriate. We were both unleashed on this planet the same month and same year. The movie came out the month and year I was born.
Okay.
So I kind of feel a kinship with the film. I saw it first when I was 10 on TV, which is also the same time I saw a trailer for Alien. So it would have been like May, June of '79. I turned 11 in October. So, that was one of those films I think that rewrote the rules for modern horror. It was, like a Psycho or a Halloween or a Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I mean, I understand if there's not a lot of love for it, but it's a very effective film. I just watched it recently. The black and white, I think, adds to it. The old-timey feel, the slow pace of it, the dread, the characters. I don't know. I think it's. I mean, for how it was done. I mean, they owned a production company that made commercials in the Pittsburgh area, the industrial films. And one day George was having lunch in a diner with one of his producers, and he's like, "Hey, let's make a movie." And George is like, "Screw it, let's make a movie." All right, what kind of movie you want to make? Well, horrors, always makes money, so let's make a horror movie. He's like, fine, we're making a horror movie. And they just kind of cobbled it together and shot it over a period of time, whenever they had time, because they had a very limited budget. And I think it's as good as what people say it is. I think it's the classic that people consider it to be. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the characters. I enjoyed. Even though it's not as related to the Dawn series, it's kind of weird. It's almost like it's its own thing. It kind of creates the zombie mythos and the zombie rules, but they don't call them zombies. There wasn't like an organized thought. They were just ghouls. That didn't come in until Dawn, which I consider Dawn to be the most important of the films. Even though I really enjoy Night, I think it's effective and engrossing, and I enjoyed. No matter what people complain about the characterizations, I thought it was brave considering the time period. The lead actor was chosen because of his skill, not his skin color. But I think in effect, they realized on set what this was going to mean to the country, and the actor had some problems with the lines. He was talking with George. He's like, with the climate the way it is, I don't feel comfortable doing this. As far as smacking the girl and punching the guy and taking charge and having with the gun and everything. He was like, I don't think that's gonna be received well. And George was like, screw it, we're doing it anyway. That's the way it's written. And it turned out to be a very brave move, and I think a very important film of its era.
Yeah. Well, I actually went back and rewatched the movie just today. I got the 50th anniversary Blu-ray that's coming out. I think it comes out on the 3rd, maybe. But it was the first time I'd watched it in many, many years, and it's very rough around the edges. It's very atavistic kind of filmmaking, but very effective. I can't imagine audiences back in, what was it,
68.
68. I can't imagine audiences back in 68. I can imagine them being absolutely just blown away by the movie, shocked and appalled, and just completely and utterly disturbed by a movie like this. And it still has this very, the fact that it's black and white, I mean, it still has this very almost newsreel kind of apocalyptic, very apocalyptic kind of feel to it. And the inclusion, casting Dwayne Johnson as the star, I mean, that was a huge step forward too. I mean, I think the movie, it's a groundbreaking horror film, but at the same time, I mean, imagine
Dwayne Jones. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say, just Dwayne Johnson.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I'm sorry.
It's amazing of The Rock to go back in time and star in this movie.
I mean, don't you remember that part where The Rock looks at Barbara and goes, "Go get your shit together"?
He slaps Judith O'Dea and she gets knocked unconscious.
And he
gives the people's elbow to the
drops the people's elbow on her.
The movie ends on the people's eyebrow.
That would have been a different movie. Whew.
That would have been a different movie. Dwayne Jones, my fault. Dwayne Jones. But yes,
so popular. What can we do?
But I do think his performance was really good, and I don't care what Romero said. Yeah, he was a good actor, but I'm sure Romero, was like, this is going to get us some attention. You know what I mean? This is going to be.
Yeah, that's why he didn't want to change it, because when he's like, I think we should change this. He said, no, this is perfect. Let's leave it the way it is, because it'll give it more edge. So
yeah,
it was very brave of him to do that, because he could have got a backlash, But the guy who played Mr. Cooper, he was just part of the production company. He worked with, and the lady that played his wife, she was involved in the company. It was guerrilla filmmaking at its finest. They just found this old house, and they just shot up whenever they could over a period of time. It wasn't like all shot in one time. Considering that it was cobbled together and it was so low budget, and it was the first time any of them were making a movie. They were just kind of learning as they went along, because they were used to making industrial films and commercials. It could have been a lot worse.
Yeah. Yeah. And the still the most shocking scene in that movie to me, there's two really shocking scenes in the movie, I think. The one is the girl stabbing her mother to death with the trowel.
Yeah.
That still is a really good sequence, really effective sequence. And at the end, when Dwayne "The Rock" Jones gets shot and killed, that's a shocker. That's a shocker. And then the way that you see them, the photos at the end over the credits where they're just throwing the dead in those body piles and setting them on fire. And
I think that's where Texas Chainsaw got it, don't you think? For that ending, with the photo.
I love the whole end sequence.
Yeah, and how they treat him like he's just another zombie. They won't even touch him with their hands. They're using those.
That's because he's black, though. That's because he's black, not because he's a zombie.
Well, the first couple times I saw that movie, I often questioned why they shot him. Because when you see the scene where he's approaching the window, and it's pretty unblocked. I mean, because the zombies had come through the window. So there was a large section of it missing. And when he's got the gun in his hand and he's looking out the window, the guy kind of hesitates for a second before he shoots him. And I don't know how far back they were, but to me it was apparent that he wasn't a zombie just by the way he was moving and actively looking out the window instead of shuffling around like he was oblivious. I don't. Maybe it kind of led to. Did he shoot him because he thought he was a zombie, or did he just go ahead and shoot him because he was black and he could get away with it?
Well, I mean, I'm sure that was something that Romero thought about too.
Left it ambiguous.
Exactly. Now, Stingray, I know you posted a poll on your Twitter the other day. What was the questions again?
Was it because he was a zombie, because he was black, or it didn't matter? They didn't care.
What?
I think
what
because he was a zombie one.
Okay.
Because I thought he was a zombie.
Well, I mean, you get a bunch of yahoos, gun nuts. They're all shooting and having a good time, killing zombies, and anything that moves is
fair game.
Fair game. I mean, weren't they lynching him, or was that the remake?
That might have been the remake. Actually,
Yeah, they were just burning him, I think.
Yeah.
My favorite part of the movie, though, is the all those clips from those White Zombie songs that they put in there.
So artistic.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead, Stingray. Tell us your thoughts on the film.
Yeah, I watched it recently, and this is actually my favorite of the original trilogy. I know that may upset some of you guys, but yeah, Judith O'Dea, man,
fire him, Orc, fire him.
You fired, bitch.
Just I mean, when she gets slapped, it's like, I mean, didn't you all want to slap her? I mean, she needed to get slapped, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, she was in shock.
Part of my problem.
Some people had a problem with her becoming the ineffective, catatonic, stereotypical female character, but
I was one of them.
I think that's overblown.
I think that's overblown. I really do, because some people would react.
It was
that
just
way. Some
annoying
people
as
would fight,
fuck. That
and
was
some
my
people would
problem.
just
Yeah, I
crawl
agree.
within their brains, and they're so. She watched her brother get killed, and she was
I
attacked.
understand
She was
that, but-
obviously a mousy girl, and she wasn't used to this kind. So her brain just kind of shut off. So
I
it
don't have a
didn't.
problem with that.
I
have a
understand
problem.
that.
And in
It was
later
just
film,
so
Romero
annoying as
had-
fuck. It wanted me to shut the movie off. That was my
And
problem.
his
with it.
apology by
Supposed to be another
rewriting the
obstacle
character,
for-
I think he
for
kind of
Ben.
went a little overboard.
Yeah,
I think that's overblown. I think it just shows it's another obstacle that Ben has to deal with, that she's not going to help him and stuff. And later on in later movies, particularly my favorite character is Sarah from Day, and she's completely capable and doesn't need any men to help her. Blah blah blah. So
I'm sure you guys have seen people in situations that are serious, men and women both,
yeah,
just do nothing to help. They're just they're
Yeah.
sabotaging
Some
the
people
whole
freeze.
situation. Yeah.
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 So I mean, I could totally see that happening,
so-
and it is kind of annoying. Totally.
hmm I mean, I get like the timing because it's 1968. It's like right at the women's movement, so there probably were women saying, "Oh, this is not like the example we want to see." But again, this is a small B movie. Wasn't a huge mainstream film at the time. It would be a strange movie to pick on for that, because at the time in 1968 there were plenty of mainstream movies that were still going out those backward stereotypes with women. So to pick on this small B horror movie for one little character for that, I think would be ridiculous.
And she was one of 3 female characters in the house, and the other 2 didn't sit on the couch next to her drooling on themselves. They were actually active. Cooper's wife was arguing with him about what's the best thing to do. I don't know, the girlfriend, whatever her name was, she went out to the truck. She wanted to go and help. I mean, there was more characters. It's just that one character froze up and had a problem. That's kind of natural. I didn't understand the upset over that. I thought it fit the
I think
story.
it's overblown because of like the female issue. Like
For
so-
me,
it
she's
depends
one of the
on-
most annoying characters in horror film history.
But
That's
isn't
why
that,
I hated it.
isn't that the point, though? That's why
Yeah.
when Ben slaps her, actually people
Yeah,
clap.
but annoying to the point I wanted to shut the movie off. Type of annoying. But that's me.
I felt
I
that
don't
about
like the movie.
characters, not her.
Just kind of slap a hoe sometimes.
Well, and also,
Stingray,
Keep that campaign strong.
well, Stingray, you said that this is your favorite of the big 3.
Mhm.
Explain to us.
It's I don't know. It's black and white, and I think it actually feels older than it is. It's only 68. I mean, hell, that's not that old.
Mhm.
But I just love it. I love Ben, of course, and I just love the whole movie from start to finish. I don't have problems with the pacing issues. I think it's just building up, but the zombies move slow. But that's just the Romero style zombie. So
Well, he has a good point. I mean, once the heart, if the brain's the only thing working, then the heart's not circulating blood, then the muscles aren't really. They shouldn't be. They should all have rigor mortis and be laying on the ground moaning. But if you want reality, but whatever. I don't know.
Well,
I was surprised at how much I enjoyed it. I think I enjoyed it more this time than I had any other time. I don't know. It just sucked me in, and I was along for the ride. And Dawn is still my favorite just because of the comedy and the action and the characters. But this one was definitely solid. It's almost tied with Dawn for me. It's great.
This is the first one I saw, so that's probably a big
Definitely
reason
the
why
first
it's
one
my
I saw, too.
favorite. So.
I think for me too.
But it's kind of like you go to Dawn from this, and it's like the T2 to Terminator.
Right.
It's the aliens to aliens. So
Yeah.
it's bigger and better, and there's more zombies and explosions and people getting their heads chopped off with helicopters and stuff. So it's just
But
Well,
the
Cameron's joined us. How are you doing tonight, Cameron?
Doing well, doing well. I'm glad to be able to join this and come right in the middle of this. It sounds like a pretty great discussion here. One thing I just want to add, Night of the Living Dead, I think it's just because that black and white. And if you remember, when we first saw it, we always would see it on these grainy black and white or TV versions. And it always looked like not like this kind of, I don't know, this really cheap, low budget black and white film, which it is. But if you get like a remastered DVD or a strong, print of it, it's just like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's beautiful to look at. It's gorgeous. It wasn't meant to look ragged from the start. It just ended up being that way because of the problems with the public domain.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
But it's a beautiful looking film. I mean, and I agree. Jay has a great thing to call it the T2 of Dawn of the Dead, because that's basically what it is. It's the next step.
Mm-hmm.
I know some people who prefer Night of the Living Dead simply because it is black and white and they don't have to deal with that weird looking blood color in Dawn of the Dead. So,
well, that was a Romero request. He wanted it to be more like a comic book.
Right.
So he went with the exaggerated colors and the sounds and stuff because he wanted it to be more like a comic book. But the first one was definitely more of a dead serious, just, I don't know, dread.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's something about that movie. Having, was born the same month this thing came out, same year. I remember old houses like that and the way things were back then. And you had the radio and the TV, but if they didn't work, you were pretty much shit out of luck for getting information. And, just... I understood how isolated that they felt, even though they were maybe only 5 miles away from the next town. That was a hell of a distance when you don't know what the threats are, and I don't know. I thought it was great.
And remember, Barbara ran by foot to that farmhouse. She, that was just the nearest place, and I understand, some people being upset with the way Barbara may have been portrayed. I agree with the remake. They took it almost to like Linda Hamilton territory towards the end. And to me, I feel like I've always felt that like characters in movies are characters in movies, and like a woman does not represent all women in society.
Right.
And Ben is African American, and it worked out obviously. But the reason why Romero cast him is because he was the best actor, not because he wanted a black man for the lead. It just happened to work out that way. And then once it did work out that way, then I think one of the things about Dawn and Day and Land is that they're more self-conscious in terms of the social commentary, whereas Night of the Living Dead kind of became out. You know what I mean? Like it was more something
They were
George
just
Romero.
trying to get a movie made at that point.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
They're just trying to get their foot in the door so they can make more movies. And he never intended on being a horror movie director. He just wanted to make movies. But that was the horror genre was the easiest one to get into. And he tried to make several. We'll talk about those films next week.
And that's how it was with a lot of these guys.
All of our heroes, all of our
Wes
horror heroes.
Craven and all
John
those guys.
Carpenter.
Yeah, it was just their foot in the door type thing, and then next thing they knew that they were good at it, so they kept doing it. But they weren't getting the opportunities to do other things either, which we'll talk about more next week, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, and Cameron mentioned the issues with the trademark on the film or the copyright on the film and how it went into public domain, and I think it's still in public domain because they
Absolutely.
didn't put the copyright thing on it, and
Anybody can release it.
What happened was it was
originally database.
It was originally titled Night of the Flesh Eaters, but before it was actually to be released, they found out there was already a film, called Night of the Flesh Eaters, so they changed it to Night of the Living Dead, but they forgot to
Better
reinstate the copyright on the new name, and they released it that way, and it was too late to do anything about it.
And then what happened, and I mean, this is fast forward, but because of this whole issue, the court issues, what was it? Romero was allowed to use Of the Dead, and John Russo was allowed to use Of the Living Dead. That's why John Russo does Return of the Living Dead, and then all the other Romero films from now on are Of the Dead, not Living Dead.
Yeah.
Well, and that's part. We'll never know exactly how much money the movie's made over the years either. And there's so many, really lackluster, awful releases for the movie. Where it's part of those 30-something movie packs, or like it's got a DVD release from some horrible company, and it looks like complete mess.
And now Mill Creek just released it on Blu-ray. I don't know anything about the quality of that.
Actually, I was talking about it earlier. The quality is not bad. It doesn't say anything on here about any kind of special transfer or anything.
Yeah, there's no extras.
It just says 1080p high definition. Yep, no extras. But the audio and video quality both looked pretty good to me, I thought.
Yeah, it's $8, so yeah.
Yeah. So, but let's see. Well, Rambo, why don't you? We've had several people talk about how much they really like Night of the Living Dead. What is it about the film that you dislike? And let me ask you this question: more annoying female character, Barbara from Night of the Living Dead, or
I know what you're gonna say.
Tina from Halloween 5?
I guess Tina from Halloween 5.
What are we talking about? Fuck, marry, kill?
Jamie? What? No, I didn't say that.
Fuck, Michael.
I guess really it's about perspective and the fact that the first one I saw was not the original. The first one I saw when I was a kid was the remake, which I like much more than the original. I like Patricia Tallman more. I like a lot of the aspects, the stuff they changed more than the original. Then from the remake, I went to Dawn of the Dead, which is my all-time favorite zombie film, my all-time favorite Romero film. Then after that, I went to Day of the Dead. Then I went to The Return of the Living Dead. And then later on cable, when I was a teenager, I saw the original Night of the Living Dead. The first time, I fell asleep, I will admit it. And then I saw it again, and I just, not a fan. It's not because it's black and white. There are black and white movies I enjoy. I enjoy Frankenstein, Dracula, the 50s Thing movie. If people feel it's slow, okay, yeah, there are slow movies, quote unquote. I know Cole doesn't think it's slow. So that's whoever says it's slow, whatever. I just found it's anytime I try to watch it, I finish it. I've only seen it maybe 3 times, including recently. It's not for me. I'm not a fan. The only actor I like was Dwayne Jones, or Dwayne Johnson, as Piz called him. I liked him. It's just, I respect what it did for the time it did. I mean, there was nothing like that in 1960, the late 60s. It's just, I don't know. For the simple fact, I just find it a boring movie. It's really nothing that simple. I watch it and I go, I can't put myself in the frame of mind of, yeah, I know it was the first of it doing it, but when watching it, I still have all of these other zombie films and other films I've seen before. I just go, it's not fair to the film, but at the same time, I can't help not being fair to the film. It's just, I saw a cheap, low-budget movie, which is what it is. That was slow, boring. I didn't care about any of the characters. I thought some of the acting wasn't that good, except Dwayne Jones. Thing I already knew about, so it wasn't like a shocker. And it has no rewatchability for me. I just watch it and go, there are so many other films in its genre, films like it, films of people trapped in a house, people that came out after it that I thought did it better, that I thought did it much more suspenseful. Like I know you guys are saying it's suspenseful, that has an atmosphere. I didn't feel that when I first saw it. I didn't feel that rewatching it again. It's just, it's one of those films I can just say I respect what it did because of when it came out. I just don't really get it. I just don't really get the. I don't see what other people see. I guess I don't know how else to explain it. It's just not my movie. I would prefer just watching other zombie films or other films, and even in that time period, it's not for me.
Have you seen the remake?
Yeah, that was the first one I saw.
Yeah,
The very first zombie film I saw, and I enjoyed that much more on every front. I like the changes they did. I like the direction they did. Even the little thing where Patricia Tolman goes, "We can just walk by them." I like that because when I saw it as a kid, I'm like, "She's right. Why don't you just walk by them?" And I know that's you go in conversation why that's not is, but everything the remake did that when I watched the original many years later did differently, I prefer that direction. Not just Patricia Tolman was a big part, but all the other little directions I preferred more. Way Cooper was taken out, all that stuff. That's more my kind of taste.
I like the remake a lot too. I think the remake did a lot of things right. I think the Patricia Tolman character may be a little bit over the top, but she goes insane. She just goes insane in a different direction. Instead of completely shutting down and turning into a crying, whimpering mess, she goes insane and she's like, "Kill them all." You know what I mean?
Yeah, I never found it over the top, so I think that's where
I find it a little jarring. I find it jarring.
See, I think that's where
like
the
the
difference
progression
is.
because she did start out kind of that way, kind of meek, and then she got stronger as it went on. But I think it went too far. I did like the character development in her character.
We agree to disagree. I never. But see, that's where the difference is. That's why that's right there. It shows
on the
difference.
remake. They have a whole special effects sequence, right? One of the bonus features. You get to see some of what the squibs look like before they took out all the blood to give it an R rating. Maybe that movie for me would be. I mean, I do like it, but maybe it would be up for reevaluation if it got a full director's cut or something. Where they put the squibs back in those shots.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know I'm probably the only human that had a positive experience with the director of that film, but I have talked to him about this, and he told me stories of how they were on time and on budget and everything was going fine, but the production company set people down to the set every day to harass him. And they would be tearing up his storyboards and like, "Oh, you want to put that in the movie? Well, it's not going to be in the movie." And so studio interference really screwed the remake. And that's another thing. Whenever Romero, flirted with the mainstream, they always screwed him over with the ratings and chopping out stuff that made his film special. But I don't know, the sequence in the graveyard, Bill Moseley plays his brother, plays her brother. That didn't work for me.
No, I can't.
His dummy falling down, obvious dummy falling down and hitting his head, didn't work for me. There was a lot of things about the remake I did like, but I don't really think it improved that much over the original. I do like it as a standalone. If that was the only one, then that would be fine.
Yeah, same here.
But there were things in it that I liked the Cooper. I liked the fact that he hit hey, the attic. Why didn't anybody think about that? That was kind of cool. It's like kind of a last minute thing. Like, oh wow, an attic. But
Great cast.
She
Great
kills
cast.
him. It was a great cast, and Tony Todd's
Yeah.
great. I mean, he was a good Ben. I mean, there's a lot of good things about it, but it just seemed like something was missing compared to the original.
cool.
I don't know. That's just me.
We agree to disagree. That's all.
And that
Nothing
was
wrong with
also supposed to begin in black and white, and as the movie went on, it was supposed to transition into color.
But I can say I like the remake more than Rambo likes the original.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. That's fair. I know I'll be the only guy on earth, but that's just my honest opinion for whatever it's worth.
That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's I like the remake quite a bit. I think the remake, just the mood of the film is just as bleak and dreadful and apocalyptic as the first one, maybe even more so.
Yeah, that's how I felt at least.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Orc, why don't you enlighten us with your thoughts on Night of the Living Dead?
I got a vape, I gotta mute my mic when I'm vaping, like Mike. Well, I can't elaborate on it too much because I'm retarded, but here's what I will say. I watched them night, dawn, and day, back to back on VHS, probably, I don't know, late 90s. because I'm the noob here. I'm the youngest. But what I liked about Night is just from the car driving up to the cemetery in the beginning, all the way up until like you think the who's the actor again, Dwayne Johnson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'll work.
all like from when the car, you see the car at the beginning of the film all the way till the end, and you like he's like coming out of the basement, and then he's got his like arm up and stuff, and you're like, oh, he's gonna make it, this is gonna be great, and then they just shoot him, and I'm like, oh fuck. All the way up until that moment, I just I liked it a lot. The female character got really annoying when I was watching the movie as well. When the daughter kills her mom, I thought that was a pretty powerful scene too. I don't know. And then there's lots of stuff. I mean, obviously we can't really do it anymore, but like on I think the 40th anniversary DVD of the movie, Romero says like there's a lot of cool stuff that went into the making of the film. Like they would just grab like random people to play zombies, and they would have like the stuff they would be eating would be like deli meat that they were throwing away out of like a supermarket, like stuff like that. But out of Night, Dawn, and Day, it's definitely my favorite. Yeah, I don't know. I just think for the horror genre, it's a huge. Help me out, Cole. What's the word I'm looking for?
What's that? Oh, it's a milestone.
Milestone. There we go. Hey,
It's a game changer.
Yes, a game. It's a watershed moment in the horror
There
genre.
you go. Yeah.
And horror really kicks ass and starts to take off big time in the 70s, but like, mid to late 60s, there weren't too many huge films, in my opinion, anyway, that I like a lot. Like
well, 68, you got Night of the Living Dead and Rosemary's Baby. I mean, that pretty much helped pave the way.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
Well, let me ask you guys this, because I mean, Night of the Living Dead created the zombie genre. You know what I mean? Could we also say that Night of the Living Dead sort of ushered in just the contemporary horror movie in general? Could we say that too?
The one location, one night, everybody in one,
The explicit violence, which was quite explicit for 68. I mean, now it's like,
when you talk
chocolate
about
sauce
like
and bologna, but
yeah,
back
when
then
you
it was
talk
quite
about
shocking.
shocking scenes, like I can just imagine what audiences thought, like in the aftermath of the truck crash, when you see the zombies like eating the flesh and stuff like that, like close-ups of them going around eating the stuff. I mean, we're used to that. We've seen hundreds of horror movies, but back then people didn't see that stuff, right? So I had to imagine that would have been a pretty shocking moment that they're seeing like acts of cannibalism on screen.
And in 1968, Sam Raimi tells a story that when he saw it at the drive-in, it played double feature with Todd Browning's Freaks.
Wow.
That
Like to remember.
I remember on that commentary too. He said like they basically finished it and then they threw it in the back of like a trunk of like somebody's car. Wasn't it Romero's? And then they brought it to the drive-in.
And the day they finished editing it was the day Martin Luther King was assassinated.
Oh yeah.
That's right.
Wow.
There's a great documentary called The American Nightmare, and it basically starts with Night of the Living Dead, and they've got great interviews with like Romero and Savini, and people like John Landis talk about how important the movie was, and it's an excellent documentary. Everybody should. Would
we have Evil Dead if it weren't for Night of the Living Dead? I mean, because the cabin, the isolated location. I mean, it's. I don't know. You watch those two, and you can definitely see similarities and where he got the idea. Shot it similar way. Oh well, he just shot this thing on weekends with this. I could do that.
Right. Well, Night of the Living Dead. If it wasn't for Night of the Living Dead, we wouldn't have gotten probably Chainsaw Massacre. We wouldn't have gotten Halloween. Like they all kind of feed off each other. They all inspired each other, and it's amazing. Without one, we wouldn't get the other.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Cole, what are your thoughts on Night of the Living Dead?
Well, yeah. For one thing, I I do agree with the sentiment Rambo has, which I often feel when it comes to certain things that kick off things, and that I don't believe first necessarily means best. Sometimes you talk to certain people and they want to talk about the history of a genre or style or something like that, and they seem to think that just because something started, it was the best. Like the people that think that like Black Sabbath are the best heavy metal band because they kind of were the start of heavy metal and stuff like that. But I'm more of the opinion, like a lot of people, which is like, this set things up, but for better things to come later. So I do think Night of the Living Dead started off, but has been surpassed. I think there's better films out there that took the same things. And yeah, especially if you're as versed in it as people like us are, have seen a lot, then you'll see that Night of the Living Dead suffers for what's known as like early installment weirdness, which you see in a lot of things. There's lots of examples. Like there's 100,000 Mega Man games, but Mega Man 1 is actually quite different from the rest. Mega Man 1, instead of having the usual 8 bosses, there were only 6. And Mega Man 1 also had slightly different character designs for some of the robots that you would never see it again. And you also could actually get points in the first Mega Man, which they got rid of and all the other things. So that's just one example, but there's a lot of things like that, right? Where like the first or maybe early installments of something that's a long-running series are actually a bit weirder. They're still ironing out the kinks and things like that. So if you're somebody that's more familiar with the later stuff, you might find the original stuff actually pretty different if you hadn't bothered with it. And I feel like Night of the Living Dead is a little bit like that. It doesn't have the polish or the grandeur.
Like, do people feel that way with Friday the 13th?
Yeah, I think that's a good example too, especially considering the first one, right? Because the first one doesn't even have Jason, right?
Right.
So that's like another really good example, whereas what's become iconic in the series was not at all in the first one. And I think it's kind of similar here. A lot of the stuff that's iconic in the Dead series, a lot of it isn't in the original, although of course some because of the stuff it introduces, but still. So yeah, I mean, as we said, it is what it is. It's a B movie. It's definitely really rough around the edges in a lot of ways. I think the editing's quite bad. Watching it again today, there's some shots like I remember like there's a part where zombies, when they finally do like the break into the house and stuff, and they're attacking Cooper or somebody like that, and there's the other girl, or yeah, Cooper's wife standing off to the side, and there's a really quick shot of like her face like reacting, like, and then it cuts really fast back to the struggle. It's just like, yeah, that's some kind of
and don't forget that scene of I think Cooper talking to his wife in the basement, and they shot it as one master shot, and then they realized that, well, for time we have to shorten this conversation, but they couldn't do it. So in the middle of the conversation, there literally is a cut. And it's the same shot.
There's a couple of times where there's at least twice that happens, because I watched it again today where, yeah, if there's something will just go like that, it'll just jump like you said.
Right.
So you can really see how amateurish it is in there. But again, that's because of time and budget and stuff like that. I don't think the acting is too bad. I think that some of the acting seems bad because it doesn't have great dialogue. Like some of the characters, some of their dialogue I think is kind of flat. So I don't want to put it too much on these actors and stuff. As everybody says, the main performance is Ben, and that's very good, so that carries the movie on. I can't watch the remake without comparing it, so it's another thing that disappoints me with the remake. Tony Todd's awesome. I just find him way too intense. I think Tony Todd needs to dial it back in the remake. He just seems really in it. But I mean, I don't know. That's fine because they aren't trying to do just like exact copies of the characters. I know that they're making them slightly different. I just know what I prefer.
You know who's heavily influenced by Romero is Robert Rodriguez. Because if you look at like El Mariachi, I think El Mariachi, like Night of the Living Dead, it's just like it's a director's showpiece. It doesn't matter how good or how bad the acting is. The filmmaking, the editing, the ferocity of what's going on is what's going to carry you through this movie.
Yeah, very similar in that.
You can say a lot of the same problems with this movie you could say about El Mariachi.
Yeah, it's definitely a sort of a rough movie too, with some of its editing's not so great and acting.
You can say that about the original Star Wars too.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, and myself included, consider Empire to be, the superior film, but yet Star Wars in of itself is still a great movie, considering what he had to go through to make it. And I don't think anybody was more surprised about the popularity of Night of the Living Dead more than Romero himself. He couldn't believe, he just made that movie just to get it made so he could make more movies. And then in the 70s, the effect that it had on the Italian film market,
oh yeah,
I think is really important to me because I love Italian cinema, and that film really kick-started, the Fulcis and the Argentos, and that really got them going. And Argento was instrumental in getting Dawn made.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
For all
he
the
wrote
flaws.
it in Italy at the request of Argento. So yeah, it may be rough around the edges and it may not be perfect, and you can honestly look at it and say that's not the best made film, but I don't know, there's something about it that makes it special. For some reason, that even though he didn't know what he was doing, zombies don't kill people by stabbing them. He didn't have any rules established.
Yeah,
and the recycling of actors, if you pay attention, the woman that gets stabbed by her daughter is the zombie eating a bug off of a tree. So that they reused people. So very much like Raimi with his shimps. He would just have people stand in for different actors for the hell of it. But there's something about that makes it special. And something Cole said about the remake, I think the entire thing is too intense. It's too
like
up.
What they're going for.
It's on 11. I think what made the original so special to me was that it was dialed back. So I don't know.
But yeah, you're right about that. I was going to say about the early installment weirdness. Exactly. It's like the rules haven't been established. Like the idea that getting bitten by a zombie infects you is not really in this movie. It's just if you die while whatever's going on, you'll resurrect as a zombie. It was the only rule going on if you watch this. And it's easy to forget that if you haven't seen it in a few years. You're waiting for there to be a scene like, were you bitten? Are you infected? Or he's going to turn. But there's none of that in there because he hadn't written anything like that. The idea was simply that some phenomenon was making the recently dead come back.
Well, this is a problem. This is a problem with the zombie genre altogether. I mean, in 1985, The Return of the Living Dead comes out, and with brains. Everyone thinks zombies, brains. That's not from Romero's.
I know, it's funny how that took over. Since it was just one offshoot movie done by other people, and yet people in pop culture seem to really focus on the brains thing.
Yeah, but the Simpsons particularly focused on the brain part of zombies.
Yeah, well, it just sounds funny. And as I've said this before on the show when we've discussed zombies and stuff like that, but I remember the first time I ever watched Return on DVD, it had different language options. So we watched it in Spanish, and you're like, cerebros, cerebros, cerebros. It's just hilarious to hear. But I lost my train of thought. Oh well. But it was something complimentary about the movie. Oh, I was just yeah, exactly. El Delicioso. But but as we said, it's just one of the most important movies, really, particularly in horror or anything. What other movies create subgenres the way this did and completely cause such a shift in pop culture? Because, like Mike said, it had something he didn't know. Nobody knew it was a phenomenon. He somehow unlocked something in the human psyche that made us respond to this idea of zombies, dead versions of ourselves. Because zombie was a thing, but he completely redefined it. It was the voodoo thing, right? And you saw it in some of the older movies, like I Walked with a Zombie and White Zombie, whereas it was a witch doctor using, strange African magic or whatever, could resurrect dead people and sort of use them as mindless slaves. But they didn't eat people or anything like that. And he just came up with this idea that threw that out the window, took magic out of it, and actually just added one of the things that was cool too. It was different for the era. Was they added all this ambiguity to it. I mean, you watched it, and there's some TV report, and they're saying, oh, maybe it has something to do with a radiation from a meteor, or a probe or something like that. Yeah. But they don't really hammer it in because the whole point is you're not really supposed to know. And that's usually what most zombie movies go for nowadays. The how doesn't matter. It's here's the zombies. However it happened, maybe we'll give you a flashback, maybe we won't. It's not important.
Just deal with it.
Well, do you remember? I'm sorry. Do you remember the John Russo reissued Night of the Living Dead, where they went back and filmed a prologue, in which they explain why that zombie is the first one to rise out of the grave in the cemetery. It's awful. It's so terrible. But they put a synth score over it. And they added an epilogue, and they added
30th anniversary one.
Yeah, and they added car explosions, and I mean they just.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I did know that.
They added stuff in the middle, the ending, and there's a huge 10-minute prologue.
There's a preacher guy.
A preacher guy. Oh yeah, it was absolutely awful. Yeah, but I was just gonna say real quick, the if Night of the Living Dead inspired all these other movies, I'm almost wondering, because George Romero, obviously, he knows a lot about film. I wonder if he had seen Carnival of Souls before this and thought, oh, I could kind of do this myself, because a lot of those guys in Carnival of Souls kind of remind me a little bit of the zombies towards the end when they all chase her down and stuff like that.
Cameron, do you know if Carnival of Souls is still public domain or if it ever was? I know it got a Criterion release, but I really want to pay $30 for it.
Well, the DVD you shouldn't have to pay $30 for. They released a director's cut DVD, but unfortunately for Blu-ray, they could only get the elements to put the theatrical cut on there, not the director's cut. So if you want the director's cut, get the DVD of it.
But is it public domain?
It's probably public. Yeah, I think it is public domain.
It's public domain here, but not overseas or something weird like that.
Oh,
Here as in North America?
Yeah, I believe it's public
They
domain.
sell the rights individually for different markets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't think they ever updated that for North America. I think it's considered public domain over here, but in Europe it's different.
I think one of the things, like you were saying, Cole, that audiences kind of really tapped into about zombies, and Romero talks about it on the American Nightmare documentary, was that, you know, zombies before were just the slaves of Dracula doing all the dirty work, you know what I mean? And, you know, his zombies were the blue collar zombies. You know, they were the, you know, they are us and we are them kind of thing.
Yeah, and and in every zombie film since really the first one, to really hammer that home, they always make sure there's a great variety of the zombies we see. It's almost like watching the freaking Village People. Because the zombies, it's like, there's your zombie construction worker, there's your zombie cheerleader, there's your zombie pastry chef. You know, they have all the people. It's like, they're all zombies, and yes, they're the dark reflections of ourselves. They're us with everything stripped away, our humanity, and down to, you know, whatever our instincts are or whatever. And that comes up like in every movie.
And Romero was a revolutionary. Right? I mean, his whole dream was to see society turned inside out. And so the idea of zombies taking over and getting rid of this capitalist society was a dream of his. You know, that was kind of a wish fulfillment.
We discussed that he was an old hippie.
Yeah.
We understand. Nice guy, though.
Peace and love. Peace and love.
Well, let me, let's check the poll real quick. If you guys have not voted on which of Romero's big 3 dead movies you want to see us do a live commentary for, follow the link in the description. Go over and vote. Let's see where we stand right now. Let me refresh the page. Right now, oh goodness, Rambo, you are not going to be happy. You shouldn't have said. You should have said Night of the Living Dead was your least favorite movie. Night of the Living Dead is currently in the lead with 44% of the vote. In second
just to piss him off.
With 33%.
You guys suck.
For the sake of his sanity, please, Dawn.
Well, I want Day, so.
Dawn is
either one.
I'll just be there and be silent, so I don't get a wet blanket.
It's good if you vote night, because you can watch it on any device, and then Rambo can rage the whole time. There you go.
No, I don't want to be a wet blanket on it. I'll be silent.
Well, it has a short runtime. That's the one.
I'll do like sign language or something.
But as far as what it tapped into, I always kind of thought that, like Jaws, the thought of being attacked and consumed alive was a part of it, but also this would be by like your child or your mom or your neighbor, somebody that you trusted and would almost hesitate at defending yourself against, because the thought of, you know, even though they're dead, you're still trying to think rationally, like, I can't hurt this person. So I don't know, maybe it tapped into that kind of.
I think so, absolutely. It's 1968. You know, there's a lot of social tension mounting in the U.S. at this time, right? It's almost going to like boil over at this point, where people are really starting to feel that tension.
Let me ask a
between
question.
each other.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Since we're doing the zombie genre, do you think it's a genre that should be put to pasture for a while? Because there's so many. Do you feel there's an overrun or no?
I feel like, throughout the 2000s, there was some sort of like renaissance of it. But
I mean, like nowadays.
Well, I
You
mean,
have The Walking Dead, Z Nation, all TV shows. You have like a zombie movie every week. You have World War Z. You have all this other
I think we're
stuff.
definitely dealing with oversaturation, sure.
yeah,
Okay.
it'll cool off, and then we'll have like a span of 5 years or something where
Something else is
zombie
cool.
fiction, where zombie fiction is just
like,
dead.
There for a while, slashers were the rage, and then every once in a while, vampires come back into vogue, and then here come the zombies again. I mean, I definitely think it's time to.
I'd say this one's already
find
kind of
something
over.
else.
What's keeping it alive is The Walking Dead, right? Because The Walking Dead keeps running for more seasons. But,
Surprised it's lasted
between like 2004 and like 2014, 15, like that 10-year span was just a ton of zombie stuff.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And
Because it's really kind of the easiest, I don't want to say easy, but it's sort of the easiest monster, right? Where Well, if you do a vampire, you got rules. Shoot it at night.
You,
Yeah.
five
You
friends,
put
an
a
iPhone,
gore,
You just need a
some
crowd.
makeup.
put a gore hounds for spectacle. Put some makeup. You
It's
don't have to
cheap.
do big suits or anything. So maybe that's why you got a lot of them, because they could be in daytime. You don't have to have too many special rules, like shoot at night only.
I don't think we've exhausted the possibilities, but I mean, it wouldn't be bad to leave it alone for a while and stuff like that. You know, I saw that like Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse movie. I was like, oh, okay, this is gonna be formulaic as shit, but you know, it still had its. It wasn't as bad as I was expecting it to be. Like I was thinking this is a movie that was made at least 5 years too late. Is how I felt. I was like, well, if this was gonna happen, they should have done it ages ago. And then I saw it and I was like, you know what? They still managed to squeeze some originality out of it. You know, it wasn't amazing or anything. So
We need to do a show on worst zombie movies sometime. That would be fun.
Necropolis.
That would be
What's that one?
There's a bad one every week on Netflix.
Dead Necropolis.
The Zombie
Got 'em.
Diaries.
Abraham Lincoln versus zombies. I mean, how ridiculous you want to get?
Yeah, those are there's a lot to choose from. There's a
Day of
wide
the Dead
pool to
2
choose from.
completion.
The remake of Day of the Dead.
I actually saw on Netflix. I don't know if it's still around, but it was on the Canadian Netflix. The Japanese film Big Tit Zombie.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
Great title.
Nice.
Something like Tokyo Gore Police. It's probably quite entertaining.
What about stuff like Burial
Can't
Ground?
take it, I promised, but
Burial Ground is awesome.
Yeah.
I haven't seen
love
it.
Burial Ground.
I think you're joking.
Let's see what's
I don't
going on out in the chat. Let's see who's joining us tonight. We've got DJ Donnelly with us. We've got Movie Man 95. Claire is with us tonight. Holiday
Claire.
Styles.
Come on the show, Claire.
Our buddy Chris Wynn. There's your invitation, Claire. Jeremy McNeil. Let's see. Movie Man 95 is with us tonight as well. Joseph Purdue. So we've got quite a lively chat here.
Just checking the voting, Rambo. Don't worry. Dawn is catching up quickly. It's now tied with night in the poll.
Nobody wants
Thank
day.
you.
Nobody wants day.
Let's see. John Hestant, someone named David, or I'm sorry. What was that? Kevin. Kevin is watching with us tonight. John Avenger. Yeah, lively chat. A lot of people tuning in. Jason Lima, how are you, buddy? Our friend Chaz. So you've got a lively chat going on tonight. Thanks for tuning in, guys. We appreciate it. And again, vote on which of Romero's Big Three Dead movies you want to see us do a live commentary on. That link is in the description. Go and vote. And let me see. Let's see where we're at right now. I think we've had some voting. Oh, goodness. Okay, so Night and Dawn are now tied.
It's getting very dramatic.
And Day of the Dead is right on their heels, though, so it's still anybody's ball game. Well, let's go ahead and let's move on and let's talk about Dawn of the Dead. And Mike, why don't you get us started discussing Dawn of the Dead?
I think it was. I did not get to see it until it came out on VHS years later, 78 when it came out. I was still a little too young. The parents were still a little overprotective. The cartoony nature of it, it's a weird movie for me. I really enjoy it on multiple levels. It's almost a dark comedy. It's almost like the blackest of comedies because you have these characters and then you have these horrible situations going on around them. The gore was, trend-setting. It was, again, a benchmark. I don't think American films had shown this type of violence. There's many memorable characters, situations, the mall, the ode to consumerism that really kind of showed the zombies returning to the mall because that was just kind of what they did when they were alive, and there wasn't much of a difference between when they were dead and when they were alive, except they moved a little slower. I was thoroughly entertained by this film. Just all the little things. You got now they did have running zombies in this film when they're filling up the helicopter and those two child zombies rush one of the characters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, Ken Foray, yeah.
Yeah, that was
Maybe
like
Romero would tell you it's because they're kids or something.
Yeah, but it was kind of out of place a little bit. So that rewatching it, I was kind of like, whoa, I kind of forgot about that. They're the only zombies that ever ran in a Romero film. But
Yeah, because when zombies were running in 28 Days Later in the Dawn remake, he was kind of upset about it, right? He was just like, real zombies don't run.
But I guess he kind of forgot about that part.
Yeah.
But overall, again, the female character in this is stronger. She kind of refuses to take a back seat. She wants a gun when they leave her alone. And there's the added drama of her being pregnant and all this other stuff going on. How long can they stay? How long will the mall be viable? There's all this, where are they going to go? They don't know how far it is. They've kind of flown around, and as far as they can fly, it's they can't find anything. They can't get anybody on the radio. The isolation, the desolation, the world crumbling around them. Because it starts out when they're, in the TV studio, and she's like, I don't think I can leave, and the guy at the camera's like, hey, we're going off the air pretty soon anyway. There's nothing more you can do here. Just run, type thing. Had a big impact. I know some people complain about, and even Savini kind of regrets the coloring, where he painted them gray, but they kind of look bluish or goofy looking.
Yeah.
And the blood is like, he hated the color of the blood, but George wanted that because he kind of thought it was a comic book movie. So those complaints were done on purpose. I mean, if you that was a conscious decision by Romero to do that, whether you agree with it or not. But the first time I saw it, it was like so intense as far as like when they're in the tenement house and the guy bites that lady's shoulder and it rips away the flesh. That was, I was a little bit, I was used to like Friday the 13th, but that was like to a next level. That was just amazing how far they went with it. And my favorite zombie is Flyboy. I think the guy who he did a great job. I don't know how he walked like that. I mean, it had to have hurt his leg. I was just like, he was committed.
Yeah.
And he led the rest of the zombies to the hiding place, and then they had to leave. And I don't know. Overall, great film. The bikers kind of provide some comic relief. I don't know. The pie in the face thing was kind of
a little
bit
much.
silly. It was a bit much. I thought it was a little over the top with the slapstick Three Stooges stuff. I didn't think it really belonged in there. But again, a Romero decision, and he had a crazy sense of humor. So if that's what he wanted, that's fine. I think Day kind of rectified that, but in a way, Day was so serious it kind of lost a little bit of the fun from Dawn, but we'll get into that later. Great movie, though. I thoroughly enjoyed it on every level. Loved the characters, loved the situations, and definitely it's up there as probably my favorite of the series.
Okay. Cool. Stingray, what's your thoughts on Dawn of the Dead?
What can I say that Mike didn't just say? Great movie. It really takes it to where it's a big spectacle, and it's just iconic. An iconic horror film. For everyone that hasn't seen it, go check it out.
Have you seen the Argento, the zombie cut of Dawn of the Dead?
I don't think I have. I've only got a single disc DVD of it. I didn't pick up that big special edition pack that had all the cuts on it. Wish I had.
I've got it, but I have yet to watch just the zombie cut. I usually stick with like the director's cut, the Romero cut.
What's the difference again?
The Argento cut is basically he cuts out a lot of the character stuff, and it's like just get to the gore.
Okay.
And all the comedy.
Yeah, all the
definitely the shortest of all the versions.
So it's, okay, so it's shorter.
Yeah.
So you could watch that and Zombie 2 like back to back.
But it's also the one that has the entire score as Goblin.
That's right. Yeah, the Goblin.
Yeah.
And it establishes the rules. I think he kind of sat down and thought about it. This is if you get bit by a zombie, you turn. So you have to, I think this one really kind of established the rules for future zombie films. And I liked how the male character was the one that lost his shit. Actually, one of the SWAT guys.
Yeah.
And he actually caused some problems that could have got all of them killed. Because he just goes freaking Looney Tunes. So I thought that was interesting, how he's trained for this kind of stuff, but he just kind of lost his shit.
Well, Romero in the documentary American Nightmare, he talks about when writing Dawn of the Dead, Argento invited him over to Italy, and so he stayed in this gorgeous Italian, you know what I mean, suite, and was just drinking lots of great wine and eating lots of great food, and writing this bleak, gory movie with a weird sense of humor. And I don't think Romero really wanted to make Dawn of the Dead. He kind of had to be talked into it by Argento and Richard Rubenstein. He wanted to broaden his career, and I mean,
but he had 10 years of flops. So.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
It wasn't a bad time to.
So that pretty much forced his hand. He had no choice.
Yeah, and I think Dawn was the movie that cemented him as the zombie guy, and that's who he was for the rest of his life.
And it was a bleak film that they were shooting, but then they changed the ending while they were shooting, and it ended up being optimistic at the end. So
right, yeah.
Everybody was supposed to die.
Yeah, wasn't the original ending the girl? She sticks her head up into the
helicopter
blade of the helicopter.
Blades,
yeah, that's quite a way to take yourself out.
Yeah,
Ken
like
shoots himself
suicide.
Instead of escaping, and then she kills herself.
So you see, like, the movie getting to that point where it's like it's right there, and all of a sudden it's like da da da, like he just runs and
yeah.
It's just
would the movie if the movie had ended that way, would that have made the movie better? Would that have made? I mean, how would you guys have felt about that ending if that was the ending?
Worse.
I would have hated the movie.
I think
I
worse.
like endings like that. So.
Well,
I feel like they already did the bleak ending for the first one.
And I think that's what inspired him to change it.
Yeah,
Was
they made night again.
You can't go from a pie fight to.
That is true.
That's
to
true.
decapitating yourself with a helicopter.
And she was pregnant, wasn't she?
No, you'd have
She
to be
lost it?
like maybe a Japanese to
Yeah,
pull
she
it
was.
off.
Okay, so a pregnant lady cutting herself with a
Only the
helicopter
Japanese
after a
can pull
pie
off.
fight.
Only the Japanese can pull off that kind of shift of tone.
Just death and then roll credits.
Yeah,
I would love
That's
it.
great too.
pie
What
fight,
was it,
decapitation.
The ending credits would run over a shot of the helicopter blades turning until the engine winds
Shot
down,
of her unborn baby being chopped up.
implying that the two would not have gotten far if they chose to
Oh
escape.
my God, Jay.
They went there.
I think one of you guys mentioned-
Argento might have shown the zombies ripping the baby from her corpse and consuming it, but I don't think
true.
Romero would have went that far.
that's more zombie cut action.
Oh, there you go.
But yeah, I think you guys mentioned about the the political aspects of the film, the social commentary aspects.
Mhm.
And I really think as time went on, it got more and more like beat you over the head with it. I think this film is okay with it. I think Day is okay with it. Once you get past there, I'm really not okay. It's too much.
He got preachy.
It's
Yeah, I think he he had to find a message, and then he made the movie around the message instead of having a good story that had a message. It was all about kind of the message, unfortunately.
Do you think he's like, okay, we're going to shoot it in a mall, and then after the movie was made, he was like, yeah, that's because even after you die, you want to go to the mall. Like, I mean, do you think he put all that shit in after the fact?
I know in an interview he said that he was having a hard time figuring out where he was going to set it, and then he got invited to this. He was friends with somebody that had to do with that mall, and he was invited to it. And while he was there was when he became inspired for that being the setting.
Yeah,
the consumerism aspect of it.
There was a guy named Carnegie, or somebody Mason? Mark Mason. Okay, it was somebody Mark Mason. He made a joke saying something. But after showing Romero hidden parts of the mall, Romero noted the bliss of the consumers. Mason jokingly suggested that someone would be able to survive in the mall should an emergency occur. So that's what it was.
And social commentary only works if it works just as a story first. I mean, take the social commentary out of this movie. Hiding out in a mall makes perfect sense. That's where all your supplies are.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, it seems like
Bitches be shopping.
it seems like the perfect place to hide. You've got you get an Orange Julius, you know what I mean?
And now every zombie video game is like in a mall. So.
Right.
Yeah. Dead Rising, yeah.
His later films always break that rule that I hate, and that's when your message ruins the entertainment value of your film. I mean, in his early films, he was able to, make it a part of it. Like, you could take that out and it would still be a great movie.
Mm-hmm.
We also had a nice bit of how you try to make yourself ignore the problem and think it doesn't exist when they make this whole house out of that room. And like, it's like 5 minutes later, they don't have a fireplace. It seems like you just have all this stuff, and it's like there's still a big problem out there, and it's not going away just because you ignore it.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good point. Cameron, your thoughts on Dawn of the Dead?
Mostly a lot of what you guys have already said. My backstory with it is I hadn't seen it when I was a freshman in college, but I was well versed in Roger Ebert's 4-star review, calling it one of the greatest horror films of all time. So of course I wanted to see it. I had seen Night of the Living Dead, but I hadn't seen Dawn of the Dead. Back then, early 90s, it still was hard to find some movies on video. And but when I was in Los Angeles, there was a video store and they had it. So I grabbed it, took it back to my dorm, watched it. And I got to say, the first time I saw the movie, I didn't like it at all. I just was expecting one of the greatest horror films of all time, and I got a pie fight.
Okay, Cameron, this is fucking too much. You don't like Die Hard with a Vengeance. You don't like Dawn of the Dead.
You say he didn't like it then. Not saying he doesn't
Listen. After you've seen it and established what it is, then of course, over the years you read about it, you watch documentaries about this, and then you go back and you watch it and you go, I was wrong. Okay. I'm just saying, the first time I saw it, it didn't speak to me as being one of the greatest horror films of all time. But
it's trying to give page slips now again.
Yeah. So, but I do have the box set. I got it at Target, that big Ultimate Edition. I can't believe Target sold it for $39, but they did. It's got the theatrical cut, the extended cut, which is the one I always watch. The Argento cut, which I've started, but I've never watched the whole thing, and I really want to. That might be a October thing for me to do, is watch that cut of it. But no, it's a film that some films you just take to right away, and some grow and mature as you grow and mature. Yeah. And that was one of those films for me that, like, by the time I've watched it, by the time I was watching it for the 5th time, I really liked it. Like every time I watch it, I appreciate it more. So
the same thing happened with me with Blade Runner. Of course, the first time I saw it was with the narration, so maybe that's why. But then I saw Director's Cut, and I liked it more and more at the time. So.
Also, VHS for some movies made some horror films look better than they were, and some made them look worse than they were. And so when you see Dawn of the Dead on DVD or on Blu-ray, if you have one of those cuts of it, it's beautiful, and so you appreciate it more. Like I mean, John Carpenter's films. I love John Carpenter's movies. They work to me in pan and scan, but when you saw them on widescreen, you were in awe of them. And I think DVD and Laserdisc, but DVD in particular and Blu-ray, really have classed a lot of these movies up, where you appreciate them far more than you ever could on a dirty VHS tape from Blockbuster. So.
Well, there was a time when I was in early middle school where I'd made a list of like all the great horror movies that I'd not seen up to that point, and I just rented them all. And they were all on VHS, of course. So, I mean, like, for instance, Texas Chainsaw, Dawn of the Dead, very much. So when I think of those movies in my mind's eye, I still see them on that VHS quality, that kind of grainy, this is a video that's been rented 1,000 times and rewound 1,000 times. And just, for the longest time, particularly with Texas Chainsaw, I didn't want a Blu-ray. I didn't want a crisp, clean image. I wanted that washed out, grainy look. You know what I mean? So when I think of those movies, I just see them in my mind as that like VHS quality. But anyway,
the makeup looks a lot better when you see it in VHS quality, doesn't it? That's true. Well, I mean, and let's talk about, the effects in that movie. I mean, the Tom Savini effects, the makeup effects, again, they didn't quite have the money to do really individualized makeup. So they just painted everybody's face blue or gray or whatever. I mean, how many extras are we talking about here? Like hundreds, right?
Hundreds,
500.
hundreds of extras. Yeah,
And they only
hundreds
had
of
like what,
extras.
3 makeup people, and they had
It's
to
like-
do all these people. It's like next, next.
And they could only shoot from midnight to 6 a.m. So
So-
9 to midnight was getting them a makeup, getting the shots done, and then 12 to 6 bust your ass.
That's pretty badass. I mean, just the fact that they were able to do it, you know, something that large scale in such a narrow shooting.
It's an epic. It's. I mean, it's 2.5 hours long if you watch the extended cut.
Well, that's what I mean. That's what I would always classify Dawn of the Dead as a horror epic. You know what I mean? Because it's not just because it's a long movie, but because it just has that epic quality.
And you never forget the gonk music every time you hear it.
No, that's true. That's true. That's true.
The tonal shifts are a little much, but other than that, it's damn near perfect.
It's a kitchen sink type of movie. I mean, anything that Romero could think of doing and could do, it's in the movie.
Could you imagine if Argento was like on the set when they shot the pie fight stuff, and Argento's like, freaking pies, man. What I don't,
Yeah.
you know.
Depends
And
on what he
what's-
was smoking that day.
Yeah, like can you imagine Argento's like, we financed this and they're having a pie fight in a zombie? What is going on? This old hippie guy's freaking me out, man. Maybe we bet on the wrong horse here, you know?
I gotta
Where's
get out
the
here and
shower
shoot my daughter
scene?
in the shower again.
And Argento raised the money for this post Deep Red, but before Suspiria.
That's a hell of a time for Argento too.
That was. Yeah. Let's see, Rambo. Tell us your thoughts on Dawn. And how it improves from Night.
Well, I mean, that was, now that I think about it, was the first George Romero directed film I saw. It was in the late 90s. There was a store that disappeared long ago called On Cue. I think it was replaced by Sam Goody or something afterward. But I would go there, and didn't know anything about the movie. It was just the VHS cover with that review Cameron talked about with the Roger Ebert. And on the back, there's no pictures of the film, just this big text of what it was about. I'm like, okay, what's this about? And I saw it and was just blown away by what I saw. And that was just on the VHS tape. I loved that with such a low budget, it was such a big adventure. I mean, you had one scene with all these military guys drinking coffee and ready to eat donuts and just shooting zombies like nothing. It was the whole opening and seeing the head get blown up. I'm like, what the fuck is that? And I was blown away by that, just popping like a zit. And then the SWAT guys really, really liked Ken Foray, really liked his character. The mall setting. Maybe I was envious didn't have a mall where I was at, so I'm like, wow, to live at a mall, that was like a kid's dream. It was such a fantasy to live at a mall. And then it was almost like I think part of it's in a weird, you know how a lot of people talk about the zombie apocalypse, but they almost talk about it like it's a fantasy, almost like they want to live it sometimes.
Right.
I wonder if it started with this, just the fact they want to live at a mall and have the ability to play video games whenever you want, eat anything that you want, just go out and play hockey whenever you want, shoot hoops and do everything.
Yeah.
And just I like the characters, Scott Ryder, David Emdy, Galen Ross. I liked the bikers. I like Tom Savini. I like some of the dialogue. Like I forget what his alley, but Tom Savini, I see you, chocolate man, or whatever he says to Ken Foray. It's like it was fun. It was entertaining. It was really gory. When you got to the ending, everyone being ripped apart. There were not too many movies at that time I had seen with that gore. It was such a great action adventure horror movie. And I'm like, I see these big budget movies that don't nearly have this amount of stuff. And I don't know if that's just George Romero had the ability, he had the town knew him and were able to help him out a lot. how he was able to get away with it, but it just shows that just because you have a low budget doesn't mean you can't do anything. And just from the score, even to the end credits, I mean, that's a movie I've seen so many times. I talked about this in the previous thing, downloaded from YouTube. Someone made a Mall Hours cut where they took all the versions, put them all together to make the longest version, Dawn of the Dead, with everything, stuff that was only in the Argento cut, stuff that was only in the extended cut, all put together.
It's like a super fan cut.
Yeah. And I even enjoyed that. So it's one of those things where when the first time I saw it, I only saw it as an action adventure movie with zombies in it, and I loved it that younger. Every time I watch it, I notice something more and more about the social opinions, but it wasn't a sledgehammer to your face to get in the way of the entertainment factor. And I just enjoyed the vibe. It is like a comic book movie. It's like one of the first comic book movies of that. It really had that feel to it. It's probably, if gun to my head, my favorite horror film of the 70s, if I had to pick a number one. And there's a lot I love. It's tough because I love Jaws, I love Alien, but that one, it made such an impact on me on what you can do with limited sources, with a great setting. Really liked Ken Foray, and just all the elements they had of, I saw drama, made me feel for the characters. I was so young when I thought Ken Foray was going to shoot himself. I was like yelling at the screen, I'm like, this is bullshit, fuck this movie. And then the John Wayne type music happens, and I got on the bed and jumped up. It's embarrassing, but I admit it. And I was excited, I was thrilled, and they go off in a helicopter, and then you have that that they redid for that show Robot Chicken. And that's how much I just really had. I still remember that first experience, and each time it carried over. So I'm a huge fan of the movie.
What do we think of like the acting? Obviously, we like the acting, Dawn of the Dead, but is it naturalistic? Is it a little bit more theatrical? Because Ken Foree, I really like him as an actor, but he's always kind of got this bravado about him. He has that bravado here as well, but it's more, I would say, almost understated. It's very more realistic than he is like in, say, The Devil's Rejects or something. Where he's just kind of I don't know. I don't even recognize him in this movie compared to who he is in the last like 20 years in movies.
Okay.
He was my favorite character in that movie.
Yeah. I don't really have any issues with the act. I thought the acting was good, really all around.
No, I mean, do you think Romero tries to go for naturalistic acting, or do you think they're trying to do more theatrical acting? Because it seems pretty down to earth.
Yeah, that's I would say more realistic, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's far from him being on a toilet killed by Michael Myers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fake Michael Myers.
Do you guys remember how big mall culture was? I mean, we're all old
That
enough
was like
to
the
remember.
beginning of the mall culture, wasn't it? That
Yeah,
was
I mean,
the
malls
super
have not
malls
really
right at the
been
beginning of
around
it.
that long of a time.
But I mean, it's not
got
really a
much
thing
crazier.
anymore. I mean, it's
No,
not
I
really
mean, Jay,
like
you're right,
around me. I mean,
because
we have new malls, but they're not secluded indoors like that.
Well, look
It's
at
all
like
outdoor mall type stuff.
that's
4 years later, you had Fast on the Richmond High, right? Which was all mall culture. So that was, right in that period.
Right at the beginning, it was like he said it was like the first super mall in his area, and that's what was so.
Okay.
In that way,
that's
it was
what
a
made
bit ahead of
George
its
so
time.
think about that. He was like, "Wow, this is going to be the future. This is where we're going. Everything is going to be like this."
Because
Well, the internet killed the mall culture, but
it like focused on like our obsession with the malls and that
Yeah.
stuff. It's kind of before it really got really big. So it was
I
a
mean-
bit ahead of its time in that way.
Before I could drive, man, that was my place to go. You could go and hang out and go see a movie, go get dinner.
Yeah, I'm
Hit
the
the
girl.
food court, hit the
Same
arcade.
here, dude. I love
You guys
paying
have like a
$10
good
for
mall
slice
and a
of
bad
pizza.
mall? Sorry, Mark, go
What
ahead.
was that?
What'd you say? Cool.
Oh, I just said, did you guys have like a good mall and a bad mall? Because we had
Oh,
like
yeah.
a good mall that was far out, but like in town we had a small mall, which sometimes we called the Grawl for like Grub Mall because it sucked. But we go to that one.
A lot of our malls around here are not doing well, and some of them are half empty.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, mine is.
That's what I was going to say. If you
Mine
go
is
on
back in my
YouTube,
hometown.
most of the malls they'll show you they're just dead, just
Yeah.
empty and dead. The
Yeah.
malls.
One of the big super mall that was in Jackson now is was built like in the probably early 70s. It's now half of it is just the police department.
Yeah, there's a mall
Really?
not far from where I live that they like moved the police department in there. Because I mean, it's just it's so empty, you know.
It's so depressing going through like a dying mall.
If you wanna see something strange, go on Google and like Google
Professionalism.
abandoned malls.
Which one?
Really, abandoned malls. Just
Oh,
abandoned
yes.
malls. Yeah, that's some weird, freaky imagery, really, to think about.
There's a whole website dedicated to that. Like it shows pictures of it in the heyday and then pictures now.
Yeah.
It's kind of sad, really. But I mean,
But is it better than people at Walmart?
Get their bodies dumped. When people get murdered, their bodies are found behind the abandoned mall.
but
Anybody-
I mean, I always had a fantasy of like hiding in the bathroom until like closing time.
Staying after that.
And, yeah, coming out and doing all the shit, you know, like chopping mall and stuff
Yeah.
like that. You know,
Yeah.
Shopping mall.
it was always fun.
How about that one-hit wonder from the '90s? Who were they? The New Radicals, and they did that. I love that. I love that video in the mall. What is it? You get what you give, or something.
Yeah. That's a good. Yeah, that's.
I mean, it's an okay song, but the video is just so cool because it's just a bunch of people just like partying and going nuts in a mall, which is pretty cool.
Yeah,
It was just so ingrained in our culture, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like you were saying, I mean, malls are kind of
Just one more social
a
thing.
dying thing.
that's
You know
dying.
what I mean? Yeah.
Death of the theater, death of the mall, death of the arcade.
Yeah, malls had the arcade. They had the pet shop. They had the
Record
toy so
stores.
right, you could buy a record, a bunny, and a Ouija board all in the same spot. You know?
Get your corn dog and lemonade. Oh man, you're good to go.
I don't think they ever had a gun store like the movie has.
It's true.
That's true.
what about a
It's
bike?
like-
That's a pretty
That's
epic
like-
gun store.
That's a big gun store.
There was a mall nearby me where I saw Blair Witch Project for the first time, and it was entirely abandoned, except for like one or two like little ma and pa shops where they're like selling peanut butter fudge, and there's the theater, and that's where I saw Blair Witch Project for the first time. So that was an eerie thing to walk out of the Blair Witch Project into an abandoned mall.
About how big was it? Like,
It was, I would say, it was sort of more of a small to medium sized mall, but
so it was like completely dead, like no one in there.
pretty much, yeah. Like people didn't even like. I think most people who went there, they went to walk because it's inside, it's air conditioned, so they went in, they walked.
Mhm.
But there were like, you know, I think there was like one restaurant, there was the theater, and like just a couple of little ma and pa shops selling stuff. Everything else, it was gone. Yeah. And I think that mall now is completely gone. So, but yeah.
I just want to ask Rambo, when you got that, when you got it from Sam Goody, was it the Good Times release where they would like record these movies on EP or SLP?
Oh god,
I remember they released a version of Dawn of the Dead like that. You pick it up thinking, cool, Dawn of the Dead, and it's like your weight would just take it because it was so light.
Well, you know, we've talked about Evil Dead and how many Evil Dead editions Anchor Bay pumped out back in the day. They pumped out just about as many Dawn of the Dead editions too. I mean,
it might have been.
That might be the main reason.
Bay.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just saying that might have been the main reason that to this day I never bought the movie because I never knew which one I should buy because they came out with so many. So yeah.
I mean, just VHS releases. There are so many of Dawn of the Dead.
The guy
Do
had
you know
the
when Anchor Bay
Max
started that
DVD.
on VHS for Dawn of the Dead? Like general, was it the late '90s?
I'm not sure.
It was when the DVDs came out. Like, okay, what happened was I remember they put out the theatrical cut of Dawn of the Dead, and for $20, I remember seeing it at Circus City, and I was like, oh, I shouldn't get this because the 4-disc one's coming out, but stupidly I bought it anyway. And then And then when the 4 disc came out, I bought that too and sold the first one off to offset.
Never change, Cameron. Never change.
No, that's every collector. We're like, well, it's bare bones and it sucks ass, but it's $20.
It wasn't bare bones. There was a Romero Tom Savini commentary. So I picked it up because I couldn't wait for the 4 disc. And then when the 4 disc went, I got that as well. Then after that, because they released a extended cut on DVD that quickly went obsolete, and then that you could get that for like $200 on eBay for the longest time until the 4 disc came out. But then after that, they just churned out the theatrical cut over and over and over again. So
I've got the Divomax special edition.
I think that's the one I have. Yeah,
it's a good one. I mean, it's good enough. I'm not paying
is that just
what they're.
Just the theatrical edition? Is that what that is?
Yeah, and it's got some special features on it, but yeah, it's just a theatrical.
if you guys have the, I think it's multi-region. If you have a multi-region Blu-ray player, Italy just released the 4K version of, transfer of all 4 cuts or all 3 cuts. So if you get that Blu-ray set, you'll have the whole thing the Anchor Base set was. So.
If you have a region-free 4K player, that's what you would need.
No. Region-free Blu-ray player.
Oh, okay.
It's just mastered in 4K.
Ah, gotcha.
I don't know. I mean, just Google it. I'm sure it'll. I think it's pretty affordable because a lot of collectors are picking them up. So
to get a region A or 1 release, though, isn't there like tons of conflict to get an actual release over here?
There either isn't one. I'm hoping everyone wants that Anchor Base set poured over for like a Scream Factory or something like that, or it may be a. Let's see. I don't know who owns it right now, but if it's Lionsgate, if they, for instance, have it, then it will be one of those. What do you call? What are those ones with that just released Warlock and stuff?
Vestron.
The Vestron. It might be a Vestron title, which I could see them putting out multiple. The box set of that as well.
I was happy to see the Vestron came back, but I was unhappy to see that they changed the music for the
logo too, wasn't it?
And the logo, yeah.
I didn't notice the music change.
Yeah. It's their updated logo.
I went and grabbed the Ultimate Edition for Dawn of the Dead. This one's got the Romero or the Argento cut in it. I've just never watched that cut. But this is a really nice set. I'm not sure why they didn't bring this out on Blu-ray instead of the Divomax Blu-ray. But
so that's why I haven't picked up a blue of it, because I want that on Blu-ray.
Right.
Stupid for not picking it up on DVD.
There's probably a holdover with Zombie. I bet you they're stuck with something like that where they can't get something.
There might be.
Well, like Romero lamented a bunch of times, so many different people own pieces and parts of these movies that it's really hard to get anything done with them.
I know it's a stupid question. I should know it because I own that. Who released the Ultimate Edition? What company?
Anchor Bay.
Anchor Bay.
Are they still a thing?
They are still a thing, but they're like a shadow of their former selves.
Aren't they like owned by Stars now?
Stars, yeah.
They've become Echo Bridge.
So a lot of their stuff, I mean, they are. A lot of their stuff they're licensing out to other companies. Like they licensed out Children of the Corn to
Echo Bridge.
So
okay.
Oh yeah, but also Blue Underground took a lot of their titles as well. So
yeah,
I'm glad about that.
Dude, I agree. Or you're just right in the chat. The Anchor Bay was the shit back in the day. I gotta tell you, you know how a lot of people are with Scream Factory. That's how I was with Anchor Bay for the longest time. They released the title. I didn't matter if I never heard of it. I picked it up.
Yeah.
I dropped so much money at Borders.
Yeah, we've talked about this in the past. Even as long as it had that little clipper ship on the spine, you bought it because it was Anchor Bay, and you had that much faith in Anchor Bay.
I saw Michael Felcher put a picture up on Facebook the other day of back at his days with Anchor Bay, and it brought back a bunch of good memories. I put out so much great stuff.
I bought Possession on Anchor Bay, and which is now a notorious title on the internet. But back in the day, in the late '90s, popping that in for the first time, not knowing what I was gonna see. That is an insane movie.
The Sam Neill movie.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a great one.
Well, I mean, Anchor Bay basically introduced me to Argento to Fulci to, especially the Italian guys. Anchor Bay introduced me to those guys.
And don't forget their Halloween cut.
Well, yeah. I mean,
They introduced me to Evil Dead like 27 times.
Yeah, I'd seen the Halloween stuff before on VHS from whatever CBS Fox or whoever put the stuff out back then. But yeah, I mean, Anchor Bay was responsible for introducing me to and so many people to so much, and to see where they are now compared to where they were then is kind of sad. You know what I mean? I think I really, I mean, and maybe it's just nostalgia, but I remember, I mean, it seems to me like Anchor Bay was even bigger then than Scream Factory is now.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, as far as the fan base, I mean, people were just nuts over Anchor Bay titles.
I was saying this in chat, but like when you used to see the Anchor Bay logo back in the day on a DVD, you'd be like, yeah, fuck, this is going to be an awesome release. And now you see it, and it's like, it reminds me of some like Dimension Extreme shitty ass movie. Yeah. I'm like, oh god, I don't really want it.
The guy that ran it, I can't remember his name. He directed William Lustig. William Lustig was Anchor Bay. William Lustig left Anchor Bay to start Blue Underground, and Anchor Bay decided, well, let's just stop buying new titles or licensing new titles, and let's just release 1 million different editions of Evil Dead and 1 million different editions of Dawn of the Dead, and they just kind of quietly went away.
The other thing the Anchor Bay. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Mike.
I was going to say, for a while until the Prom Night Blue came out, the Anchor Bay DVD was the edition to have. Because it came out, I think Echo Bridge put out a crappy version of it, and there was a couple other ones, but it had the classic poster. I remember when Anchor Bay was the shit, but
oh yeah,
they put out Opera, and for I don't know how many thousands and thousands of versions they put they out there in the world to own. Every single one was defective. Every single one. I have a 2-disc one that did work, but all the 1-disc ones did not work. And so it was a pain in the ass trying to find that 2-disc one because the 1-disc one was you couldn't play on any machine. It did not work. And of course, you try to back then it was harder to contact companies to get replacement discs. So you just kept rebuying the same movie over and over again. This one doesn't work either. Crap. Next thing you know, you have 6 copies of Opera that don't work in your house. So.
I remember when Anchor Bay was issuing those replacement discs. They had to lose a ton of money because they did not require you to show a proof of purchase. You just sent an email with your address, and they sent you a disc in the mail. Literally, that's it. I don't know how many people who just did that and they got a free Opera disc in the mail. So
lucky them. I didn't know about that.
They had. Anchor Bay had to lose a ton of money over that. So I don't know. But does anybody have anything else they'd like to say in closing for Dawn of the Dead before we move on today?
If you haven't seen it, do so now. It's a classic.
Yeah. I think it's. I consider it to be the first horror epic. I think it's just such a. I would say it's just as important as Night of the Living Dead.
It may not be my favorite horror film of the 70s, but it's definitely on the list.
Mm-hmm.
You have The Exorcist, you have Jaws, The Omen, Dawn of the Dead. The 70s was a really fertile ground for horror, and if it wasn't for the 70s, the 80s wouldn't have been as good as they were.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely probably one of the best zombie movies ever made.
I think it's definitely the most iconic. I think there's a lot of people out there that attribute things that were in Dawn to Night of the Living Dead and stuff like that. A lot of the things they're thinking of, it was actually Dawn that you're thinking of. I think Dawn has, because of the timing and the epic scope and stuff like that, has really become the one that's sort of the most ingrained. Night of the Living Dead, it still has fame because it kicked things off and because it was an independent movie and stuff like that. But I think Dawn is really kind of the most enduring as far as how people remember it and think about the subgenre of zombie horror and stuff like that. It just has so many iconic elements and stuff. It's and like I said, because I never actually wound up owning it. It's of the big 3, it's the one I've seen the least, which is kind of too bad because I do like it very much. But yeah.
This is a turning point too, because this movie was such a huge hit, and a huge hit for an unrated movie, which could never happen today. Movie theaters don't even put on unrated movies in their theaters. This was a huge hit. Romero, easily could have just gone the Hollywood route after this, just moved out there. He chose not to. Made a bunch of other classic films, but this movie could have easily catapulted him into, directing big films in the Hollywood system, and he chose not to, which I admire. But I also think it would have maybe helped him a little bit too.
Now I was going to ask, did George Romero make money off this, or because for some reason I keep thinking he got fucked over on this one too?
It was a successful
sure.
movie. I'd hate to think.
I'm sure.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, it made a lot of money.
Okay.
I don't know, but you could be right about him.
I don't know. I thought I heard something, but I can't remember what it was.
Rambo,
Maybe I was just wrong.
I don't think he got screwed over because he worked with Argento again with Two Evil Eyes. So
No, I didn't mean by Argento. I didn't know if he was able to make a lot of money from it or such. I don't know, for some reason I remember. I mean, it might have been about night. Maybe that's what I'm mistaken about.
It was the film that saved his career.
Yeah, it's the most profitable film of the Dead series, so I hope he got what he's due for it.
Because it seemed like even after he seemed like he was struggling. So that's
because he had grand ambitions for Day, right, and had to completely change it. Like he wanted Day to be like an epic.
Yeah.
They cut it down and revised the script a bunch of times and changed it into something much more minimalistic. He had something much more grand and sweeping. He said, what was it? He wanted to be the Gone with the Wind of zombie films or something like that. Instead, you lined up with a minimalistic, sort of cramped, claustrophobic type of film.
That was the movie he got screwed over on.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, and I think Don has the best tagline of maybe any horror movie. Period. When there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth. That's a great tagline. And speaking of Day of the Dead, because we're moving on to Day of the Dead. I was going to say Day of the Dead had taken the lead in our poll, but Dawn of the Dead has taken the lead over Day of the Dead by 1 vote. So right now, as it stands, at 31% Night of the Living Dead, at 38% Dawn of the Dead, and at 31% Day of the Dead.
Okay.
So
remember, vote for Night as many times as you want. Rambo says that's okay.
Vote for Day or Dawn.
So let's see what's going on in the chat. Our buddy Jerp Pin is watching. He says, yay, TSF is back in action. Rhonda Toy says, hey, Sausage Factory, glad you're back. Just joined in from California. Howdy. Brian Partington is watching tonight. The Cartoon Man 13, Jack Craven. Glad to see you guys. Looks like we've got a lot of people who are continuing to hang out with us in the chat. Looks like Orc's in the chat doing his usual trolling, so keeping things lively, keeping everybody on their toes. But let me remind everybody, if you vote for which of Romero's big 3 Dead movies you want to see us do a live commentary for, using the link in the description. Right now, Dawn of the Dead is in the lead, but just by 1 single solitary vote. So, What are you going to say, Rambo?
No, just want to say, before going to Day, sort of a quick yay or nay thoughts on the remake of Dawn.
Oh, good.
I thought it was. I saw that theater. I thought it was much better than I thought it would be. I still like George Romero's more, but I thought it was really good, and it's actually the best movie.
A good one. I was going to mention the remake, and then it kind of slipped my mind. I think
it was the Aliens to its Alien in a way, because the remake was just so much energy, just so much action. The only thing I didn't like about it was the track star zombies. I thought that was a little ridiculous.
But I mean, if you're going to do it different, I think that's a good way to take it, to make it more, thrilling.
Did you like in Return of the Living Dead, B-movie, Mike?
That was a horror comedy.
Oh, okay.
So I wasn't really taking it seriously. I was too busy laughing. I didn't really expect for me to take it seriously.
Oh, okay.
When the zombies were talking, I mean, send more cops. I mean, it was hilarious. And the little person zombie that runs after the guy. I can't think about that movie without laughing. It's amazing. You got the enchilada man in there screaming at the one zombie that's tied to the chair. Oh, the pain.
Medellin or enchilada man.
Yeah. I forgive that one just because it was freaking hilarious. But this one was supposed to be a remake of a classic. and they kind of broke that rule. I don't think they needed to make the zombies that way to make it more threatening. I thought the characters were fine. The addition of the zombie baby was interesting. In the mall, they had too many characters, though. I thought it was character overload, whereas the first one, you didn't have as many to try to keep up with. The mall cops were kind of, I don't know. There were some things about the remake that I didn't like, but overall I enjoyed it.
The thing that ruins it for me, and I knew it because she is such a horrible actress. They put in that absolute hack, that total hack, that Canadian hack, Sarah Polly, and it just totally ruined it.
But
She took actually out of a hockey bag. It's just awful.
I think you're right. I think Ving Rhames acted circles around her. Yeah.
Clearly. Yes. Yeah.
It hit me wrong from the beginning. Okay, so they wake up, and then the zombie girl attacks her husband, and her husband attacks her, and she gets away in the car. Well, the scene where he's like just sprinting behind her car, and then that neighbor walks out like with his coffee to get his paper, like he doesn't know what's going on, and her husband just makes a beeline for him. I busted out laughing. That was so hilarious. He's just just runs over there and tackles the guy. It's just, it was just ridiculous.
I will say this about the remake and the whole running zombies thing. I thought it did make them threatening. Like the walking, shuffling zombies, it's like I can just push them over. Walk. Did I lag out?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a little bit. I never know if that's somebody else. Okay, good.
For a second, there was no.
Everybody just goes quiet.
You just sort of frozen with your arm out, like.
Like the Romero zombies for me are only threatening if they're in mass. I thought the Dawn of the Dead running zombies that definitely added, that made them more of a threat. That made them, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
When that movie starts, man, damn, it gets my blood pumping when the girl comes in and it's just, man, hit the ground and it's going.
Yeah. I like its opening, and then what is it?
Yeah.
Just the Johnny Cash song over the news footage of the zombies.
Well, and that opening they played on USA Network to like introduce everyone to it.
I was gonna say I had no desire to watch the movie until I saw the opening that they played on USA, and I was like, "Holy crap, this looks good!"
I think it was Sci-Fi Channel.
That's why they've
seen that it was on Sci-Fi Channel.
Was it?
Yeah,
I love the version of Down.
But that's why they did it.
Yeah.
I love the version of Down with the sickness in the theater when they're like, "Why don't you shut up and fucking die, you son of a bitch?" And the guy's like lifting weights. I think it's Ving Rhames, and then the other couple's like fucking in the mall. That part always cracks me up.
I think James Gunn just wrote a pretty decent screenplay. He knew he was going to get, a lot of crap for it, so he shaped it in a way where it wasn't going to be a problem where you could, because he even has the helicopter from Dawn of the Dead in it, so that it doesn't take away from Dawn of the Dead.
Well, and this was before, Zack Snyder was Zack Snyder, but even then the Zack Snyder style was a little bit much. It was like, do we really need to see all of these slow motion close-ups of the bullet casings hitting the ground? It's like, okay, we get it, dude. You like slow motion, the bullet casing. It's like every time somebody fires a gun, slow motion bullet casing hits the ground.
But then Watchmen came out and everybody was filleting him for months.
Well, I love Watchmen.
Well, you got to have the right look and tone for each film, and my favorite moment about Dawn of the Dead, the remake, is when I was at a Fangoria. When I was at a Fangoria convention and Tom Savini was there, and people were asking him, "Hey, what do you think about this Dawn remake?" And he goes, "You know what I think? Who cares about it? There's only one Dawn of the Dead. George Romero's Dawn of the Dead." And then when I see the movie, Tom Savini's in the remake, and I'm like,
"Yeah, like a sheriff or something." Yeah, TV. Hey, money goes a long way.
Yeah, he was selling T-shirts because there's like a tagline, right? What's the tagline in that? He's like, there's something. I don't know. I can't remember what it was.
Is it they're dead? They're all messed up or something like that?
No,
that was from the remake of Night. And the guy who said that was actually the original Johnny in Night of the Living Dead.
That's in the original Night too. The sheriff does say that in the original. He says, "Yeah, they're dead. They're all messed up." Is what he says, because he says, "Yeah." When he asks if they can run, he goes, "Yeah, they're dead. They're all messed up." It's a good line.
Which is why he wouldn't be sprinting behind a car like Usain Bolt. I mean, holy shit, it was like a rage zombie from 28 Days Later. It was ridiculous.
Yeah. They really wanted to create that contrast, right? Like these zombies are happy. Yeah, I like it.
I mean,
I like when they pull back and you can see the overall destruction in town, like cars running into a gas station and just mass freaking anarchy and chaos. That was cool. But did they need to be track stars? They were eating their Wheaties, right? Holy shit.
Yeah. They're fans of Michael Jordan.
Wasn't as bad as the Day of the Dead remake when they were crawling on the fucking ceiling. Holy shit.
Oh, God.
I don't think I'll ever see that.
But there's so much anger with the Dawn of the Dead remake. It's like, they've remade everything by now. I mean, like, fuck it, fat zombies are shit.
Yeah, I like the Dawn of the Dead.
They both exist. I mean,
that's actually one of the remakes I liked, and I'm usually in that category when Jay thought about.
And it's not just for Sarah Polly.
I would go to the original before I would go to the remake. Although I don't hate it, it's one of the better remakes. It's well made. I like the gun store character that's communicating with them with the whiteboard. Yep. And then when he gets bit, it's just like a smear of blood. There are a lot of things in the movie I did enjoy. Too many characters and some other things, but other than that, it's pretty cool.
I think he calls them like a Twitcher or something, or I don't know, something like that. Anyway, he sells T-shirts with that line on now.
Oh yeah.
Well, let's move on.
It's pretty funny. It's like kill Burt Reynolds.
Yeah.
Naming the zombies as they shoot them. That's funny.
Yeah, that is funny. Yeah, it's as remakes go, Dawn of the Dead, the Dawn of the Dead remake was pretty darn good. I had a lot of fun watching it.
Did you order the Scream Factory disc?
I actually own that version, which is I guess sort of sacrilege, in that I own the remake, not the original.
No, but I did buy this Scream Factory edition the other day because it was on sale on Amazon, and I got the Day of the Dead.
Oh, nice.
So
nice.
I've got that really nice Anchor Bay Divimax DVD that's got like the really cool case. So
this is the one I have, Divimax.
Yeah.
So they're both really good.
Yeah. So yeah. Well, let's move on. Let's talk about Day of the Dead. Mike, why don't you get us started?
I saw it in the theater. It was the first Dead film I saw in the theater, so it was a cool experience. I loved the setting, the characters. I actually got to meet Richard Liberty, who was a very nice guy, and I loved his character, the mad scientist, Dr. Frankenstein, or Bub. I mean, Bub was just one of the greatest zombies ever thought of. It was just such a cool, how he was going with the you could train him type thing, and then you had the military captain Rhodes who took over. We never got to meet, his boss who was actually working with the scientists, but he died and Rhodes took over, and you got the military guys and you got the scientists and you got the Jamaican helicopter pilot. Amazing cast. I love the setting. A little claustrophobic and a little, I mean, it's dry. I mean, because Dawn maybe had a little too much comedy in it with the pie in the face, but this was like too much in the other direction a little bit, I think. And that probably had a lot to do with the fact that he had to cut. Like we talked about earlier, he had this huge vision for it, and they were like, okay, well, if you release an R-rated film, we'll give you this much money. And he's like, no, I'm going to do it unrated, so they cut the budget in half. Okay, well, then we'll give you this much money. So he didn't have a whole lot to work with, so he had to cut things down. It would have been nice to see his full vision. I mean, I know later we'll talk about Land next, but a lot of what was left over from this one was used for that one. I think it would have been better if it was stuck in this one, but the makeup effects probably the best of the series.
Yeah, they're peak.
I really think this was where Tom Savini, this was his benchmark. This was his apex. The creativeness of the kills, and like the shovelhead zombie where his eyes are still moving, and there's just all kinds of little touches in there and character moments. Just a great movie. It's not my favorite compared to Dawn, but it's right. I mean, those three films, the first three, are so close. It's like 1.1, 1.2. They're like right neck and neck with each other. Claustrophobic. I think actually not showing them above ground helped with the dread.
Mhm.
in a way, because
I
if it
think
would have
so.
shown them flying around and seeing more stuff and being more active outside, I don't think we would have really gotten the caginess that the characters were going through. You know, they were all locked up in a desperate situation. Half of them wanted to just shoot their way out, and the other half wanted to try to find a way to live with it. Um, and I don't know, the characters, the situations. It's a great flick, and the gore is just top notch.
Oh yeah. The first time I saw Day of the Dead, I'd never seen a movie with such a grim, bleak tone. Like there was a hope in Dawn of the Dead. Dawn of the Dead ended with, hope. Day of the Dead says there is no hope. It's done. Humanity is dead. We're probably the last living people. We're all living underground. We all hate each other. We yell at each other all day long. And you know what I mean? This is it for the rest of our lives.
So it's realistic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is our existence for the rest of our lives. And there was something about the movie. It was just such a, oh man, I don't know. It just, it had such an effect on me that first time I saw it because of how bleak it was and how grim it was. And the fact that everybody just seemed like they hated each other. Everybody just yelling back and forth at each other and arguing. I didn't like it. It was my least favorite Dead movie for years and years and years. But it was the Dead movie that I thought about the most because of the gore, because of the effects, but also because of that grim quality. And it was the one that I would come back to and revisit. And every time I would revisit it, I'd like it a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. And now at this point, I think Day is my favorite because of those elements. I mean, as you said, this was Tom Savini. This is his Mona Lisa. Day of the Dead is his Mona Lisa. It's his best work, I think. And the gore effects, just the gore effects themselves, are masterful. When what's his name gets pulled in half, let's see, my God, I mean, that was awesome. That's still to this day. That's an amazing effect.
Yeah.
I like when the one guy's head gets ripped off and you can hear his vocal cords stretching as he's
Oh
screaming.
my God.
Yeah.
That was amazing. That was just like, oh my God.
Yeah, I think the first time I saw that, I had to rewind it several times because it was like so shocking and disturbing. But yeah, amazing. I like the performances. They're very, they're Joe Polito as the guy. He's on 11 like the whole movie. You know what I mean? He's
Well,
been
that was kind of Romero's insistence, I guess, because he was like, George, aren't I being a little over the top here? No, you're fine, just keep going. And when he first saw the movie, he was like, you asshole. look what you did to me. He was kind of like, that's a little too intense, but here's a guy that lost all control over his life, and the only thing he can do is control the situation he's in. And he now finds himself in charge, which would be the wrong person to be in charge. But
Right.
I think he played it well. He was the antagonist really more than the zombies.
Mm-hmm.
The zombies were just kind of there, and he was the one really pushing the story in a bad direction.
That's true for all three of these movies, where the main problems are with the other people they're with.
Yeah, the movies kind of prove that living people are actually worse than the dead ones.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I
The
think Lori
humans are the
Cargill.
monsters. Well, okay. We're the real monsters. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I think Lori Cardill is great. The guy who's like drunk the whole time, I think he's cool. The guy with the Jamaican accent is a bit much. That accent is a bit jarring.
I like how he has his own little setup out there. He's got his camper, and he's got some fake palm trees and some lounge chairs, and he's just like, fuck it. I'm going to be on the beach in my brain.
Yeah,
Fuck
exactly.
you people.
It's the best of it.
I guess that guy would be at horror film conventions and like still carry that Jamaican accent. So everyone, I guess, thought that, oh, I guess he's actually Jamaican, and then find out, of course, later that was still an act.
Don't shatter the illusion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he was going to play it straight, but then George's like, no, do that. That's cool.
Yeah. So it's the one that like sticks with me the most of the Dead series. Day is the one that resonates with me the most, and I've seen it the most, and I think it's my favorite now at this point.
You really kind of feel bad for Sarah, I believe was the character's name.
Yeah.
Yes.
Where she's like the go-between between the scientists and the military. And at first, it looks like the military is just being completely unreasonable, but they were being way over the top as far as being controlling and militaristic. But then she finds out that the doctor really is what they say he is. He's fucking crazy.
Right.
He's trying to train these zombies like dogs to be able to perform tasks, and he really was wasting time and doing nothing productive. And when she finds that out, she's really pissed, but it's a little too late to do anything about it.
Well, I mean, Bub was a success. Bub loved him.
Yeah, well, Bub was a unique zombie. I know he obviously a former military person, because when Rhodes walks into the room, he salutes him, right? And I don't know, the doctor was able to reach him. He had enough of his humanity on the surface where he could recognize things that he remembered it, and he was almost like an obedient dog, but he was still being fed pieces and parts of the deceased military people. So he hadn't really gotten him off the diet. So you would know he would revert to his old behavior eventually. And he was pissed when the doctor died, and he actually hunted Rhodes down, which was a great sequence.
With a gun, didn't try to bite him.
He shot him with a gun.
Yeah.
Would you say that Bub is probably the most successful zombie like character in the history of motion pictures?
Yeah.
Sure.
I think so.
There should be a Bub movie where Bub like tries to well, I guess they kind of did that in Land of the Dead with the one zombie where he's kind of like trying to
get them to band.
He's trying to wake them up and realize that, hey, you can do more than just wander around pretending to do what you used to do. Wake up.
Exactly. Yeah,
so I guess he was like the inspiration from Bub, the national, because he talked about the evolution of the zombies and what he had planned, and so that definitely makes sense. It's too bad it wasn't Bub.
Right.
That would have been really
awesome.
cool.
That'd been awesome. Yeah. That'd been awesome. Yeah. What is the socio-political message behind Day of the Dead?
It's just, I think, just about communication breaking down between people and
Our inability to work together.
how it leads to disaster.
The government sucks.
Well, you have several different mindsets. You have the sane people, which are the drunk, the helicopter pilot, and Sarah. Then you have the crazy scientists, and then you have the off-the-wall, mad military people. So you have the people in the middle trying to talk sense to everybody else, which seems to be what happens. You have one side that's totally batshit one way, another side that's totally batshit the other way, and the people in the middle going, "Come on, guys, hey, let's do this thing logically."
Yeah. And it shows that, like, even in the breakdown of society, there's no government or anything like that. We still try to, use this hierarchy. We still separate ourselves into groups and stuff, and how that can actually be problematic and cause conflict.
And how we've been
because he's like,
trained to
I
think
give the
this
orders
way.
here, but there's not really any chain of command anymore. There's no, and stuff like that. But and they're stuck as the go-betweens, and they can see it all unraveling, and they can't really do anything about it. So yeah, there's just that sort of pervading sense of dread. After Dawn, which is so much fun. Like, this movie, you would think wouldn't be any fun. It's so bleak and stuff like that, and it has a limited location. But I just get a lot of fun out of it anyway. It is my favorite. I think you and I are wired the same way, Hazel. And that just, I don't know, the bleak stuff gets to me and makes me think about it more and appreciate it more. And I like it's a movie where I can really get a sense of how the characters are feeling, the claustrophobia and stuff, and just the repetition of always eating the same food and going to the same places and doing the same things and nothing ever changing, and how frustrating that gets for them. And the PTSD that the Hispanic guy, I can't remember his name, was suffering from seems very real and believable. And again, it's because they're so understaffed and stuff that these things are going to happen. You can see that a problem's coming, but you can't do anything about it. She's saying, you can't put him on duty now. He's too burnt out and stuff. And they're like, well, there's no one else, and it leads to an accident and stuff. And no, it is my favorite for whatever reason. And also, Sarah's a big reason too. She's my favorite character in the series, I think. I think I'm hard on a lot of female characters, and sometimes when they're strong characters and I find them off-putting and stuff, I always have that in the back of my mind if people think that maybe I'm just being sort of sexist about it. It's like, oh, you're put off by strong women, or you're intimidated, or, but that's not true. There's just ones I like and ones I don't like, and she's one I really like, and you definitely feel her plight, not just being as being in the middle, but also as the only woman. Nobody comes out right out and says it, but they're saying, there's going to be a lot of tension here. It's all men here. You're the only woman and stuff. And the closest it comes is one of the the less crazy scientist says to her, like, watch yourself, and I mean physically, and you get what, and she just says, I can take care of myself, and you see how she suffers a little bit from that too, and that she's tough and independent and stuff, but she has to keep projecting it over and over again, because if she shows any sort of weakness, these guys will jump all over her and do God knows what to her and stuff. And the only thing that keeps her sane is the helicopter pilot and his friend, because they still treat her well and with dignity and equality. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that the guy with PTSD is actually her boyfriend, and it is
right.
Rhodes does mention at one time, that she's now available, and maybe somebody else might want to take a turn. So that was that threat was definitely implied.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that I thought the actor that played that guy, I didn't like him as an actor. I don't know. I didn't like the way he portrayed the character. I thought it could have been done in a different way. I thought he was, I don't know. It was just something that was off-putting about his performance. But it was a good character, and it created a really good situation, because they're wanting him to just, John Wayne up and get your gun and let's do this. And he's having problems, and it was almost kind of like in Patton, when that guy was losing his shit, and Patton smacked him, and kind of that kind of a thing. Just get your shit together, let's go. You're military, you don't have time to cry. But this guy is like losing it, and she's trying to protect him, and it was a cool situation.
And the conflict between them is cool too, because again, probably because she's a woman too, like he's actually kind of annoyed and feels a bit emasculated by it at the beginning. Like he just says, "Oh, you're so strong. Yeah, I know, stronger than me." And he's got all this self-loathing, and he resents her for it, that she's holding it together better than he is, which I really like too, because she did care about him at one point, and she's watching him disintegrate, and he's lashing out at her. I find all that really compelling.
Well, that's the complete, that's the Barbara character,
Mm-hmm.
In male form, yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That stuff is not reserved for just one gender.
Right.
So to see any character do that is understandable. Miguel
is his name?
Yeah.
Yes, it's Miguel.
That dude sucks, man. It's like, man, that's got to be a huge turn off, man. My boyfriend is like an old lady.
But again, it's pretty crazy circumstances.
Yeah.
I mean, I cut the guy some slack.
Yeah, I mean,
we'll go ahead.
Not as strong as you. Oh!
Yeah, you could tell he came from a theater background, because he was playing for the back row.
Mm-hmm.
And then he slaps her, and she's like, "Slap me again." He's a man up, beat the dog shit out of that motherfucker, man.
Well, go ahead, Stingray. Tell us your thoughts on Day of the Dead.
I like it a lot. It's always flip flopped as one of my favorites, but I think it may have been Yupa's out that mentioned how bleak it was, or how bleak it is, and that's very contrast to Dawn of the Dead. I don't know if you guys mentioned that yet. How you go from all the bright colors, and then you go down, everything's just gray.
Mm-hmm.
And it really limits the rewatchability for me, because it is so bleak. It's not really something you can throw on as an easy watch. It's kind of big hitter. You really got to be in the right mood to watch stuff like that. But makeup's obviously the best out of those three movies, and just the makeup on Bub alone is great.
Mm-hmm.
But I love it. I love the different zombies. I like a lot of the characters. I think the acting's really good in this film. I love Sarah. She's probably one of my favorites in the series as well, next to Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. But it's a really fun film. Well, not too much fun, but
Steel, the character of Steel, is actually quite funny. He's like the comic relief.
Yeah,
He's always got some bullshit to run on somebody.
And he has a pretty good last stand,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I'm sure there are people out there that do find the movie has a bit of a slow build up, but the payoff is great. I mean, that whole final 20 minutes or whatever when the shit hits the fan is great, because you get different perspectives, the different groups all dealing with it after Miguel lets them in and stuff. Like, I guess to jump around from different people's point of view, and you see how most of them don't make it and stuff is pretty good. Steel gets a pretty good last stand.
I like how they end up on the beach, though. The Jamaican guy got his wish. Let's just take off and go to the beach. Yeah. And at the end of the movie, they're on the beach.
Yeah,
that's the other thing. I like how other of these films have bleak, sad endings, but I like how this one, these characters got, they got their happy ending.
Yeah,
I liked it for that one.
Yeah, as bleak as it was, as dire as it was, it did have kind of, a nice ending where they were on the beach. So
Yeah.
And she was mad about that at first because she, felt at the beginning of the movie she felt a certain sense of responsibility. She's like, "How can you want to do that with all that's going on?" He's like, "Man, I could do this even all that wasn't going on and stuff." And she feels like it's her responsibility to try to make on a cure and stuff. And then when she, not just the futility, but she sees the way the scientists are approaching it and stuff like that. But it's also like, honestly, I don't know how much fuel they have, but technically they could fly back to civilization and take a look and see if maybe they died out or starved to death or something. Then they could give society another go. But there's no shame in a strategic retreat.
anybody else have anything they want to add about Day of the Dead? Cameron, Rambo?
Well, you want to go, Rambo? Because I have something else to say when you're done.
Okay. Yeah, Day of the Dead was the one I saw after Dawn, and I really enjoyed it as well. I guess I was had a weird thing, and I didn't really see the film that bleak in a weird way. I guess because it ends on a beach, I'm like, oh, cool. But I like the cast. I like the musical score. The effects are very well done.
Yeah, score's a good thing to point out because it's pretty different from the others.
Yeah,
it's definitely different from Goblin, but I thought it fit the film well.
Try and do that apocalyptic thing I think they did in the 80s. It's good, yeah.
And I think the guy who did the score, he went on to be a director of like the Dune miniseries and
Yeah, he did Books of Blood.
Okay.
Books of Blood movie. Yeah.
Clive Barker, not a good one.
Yeah.
That's too bad.
But I loved Joe Plow's Captain Rhodes. Just all of his lines of dialogue. I'm running this monkey from Frankenstein. I wonder what the fuck are you doing in my time? It was so entertaining. It was like over the top, but it was fun. Like I had a smile on my face. And it's still a guy I wouldn't mess with, but maybe when he cools down, have a beer with or something. But it was colorful characters in a way, because I wonder maybe George Romero did that because stuck in this like a giant basement. I mean, a giant cave. So you can't have actual colors. So they have some colorful characters. And I never found it boring. I thought it was very entertaining. I liked the bits of dialogue. I thought Laurie Cordeal was really good, the lead. She was likable. The gore effects are fantastic. The zombie that just has a ton hanging out at the beginning of the film. And like this weird quick thing, like there's an alligator in the background.
Yeah,
on the
I like how
steps.
the alligator. They come down the steps with an alligator right behind them, and I like how the alligator just ignores them. I like the idea that they're tainted or something, so the alligator has no interest in trying to bite them. Maybe it already did, and it's a zombified alligator.
I think they actually taped its mouth because, like, you look in the background, there's like a little tape on the mouth, and I think the people behind the scenes they actually
probably
taped
must have because they have two actors right by it.
Yeah,
And those two actors that were right behind it were actually the Wranglers.
Makes sense.
And they were so concerned about safety on set that they just dressed them up like zombies and had them walk out behind it.
We'll bring an alligator, but we got to be zombies. Come on.
Huh.
But yeah, I mean, I too noticed the head being ripped off and the voice box stretching, and I never would have thought of that if you do that effect. But when I rewatched it, one of the times I rewatched it, I thought that was really good. And overall, I think it's for Romero zombie films, it's my second favorite after Dawn. I think just Dawn, that was the first one I saw, and it just had such a spectacle. But this had the opposite spectacle-wise, but it was still, I thought, well-told story, and I kind of wonder if it was actually good that George was limited, because I don't know if it would have been better if he had all the money, because I don't know all the details about all the top-side stuff, but I
wonder that too, because to me it just turned out so well that it's hard to think of it, being so drastically different and being as good or better.
Well, that's where I come in.
What was the thing? Like they were slaves or something? Like what was the whole? I don't know. On top,
I think there was an above ground encampment,
kind of like Land of the Dead, which is where that movie came from.
Okay, all right. Well, I guess that'll go to Cameron. Feel free, Cameron.
Oh no, I was just gonna say that. So I have a love-hate relationship with this movie. I really love the movie. Don't get me wrong. before you blast me in any comments. All right, I really do love the movie. However, it's too bad George Romero didn't see kind of the future at the time, because nowadays you can release an R-rated movie in the theaters and then release your unrated director's cut on DVD and Blu-ray. So sometimes I wish that he had just kind of just altered his vision just a little bit so he could have gotten that extra money, because I think when I think about it, I think it's more important for this movie to be the Gone with the Wind of zombie movies than it is to be the $1.5 million unrated movie that barely played in any theaters in 1985. I think if he had done the R-rated version of this movie with a bigger budget, I think he would have had a much longer career and more movies than he ended up doing after this movie. The bombing of this movie and then Monkey Shines and Dark Half basically cemented him not working for almost 10 years.
His opinion was that he waited too long to make it. He said he should have made Day, earlier.
Right after.
He waited too long after Dawn to make it, and that was kind of his opinion as to why it didn't do as well.
So Day was considered a flop?
Oh, it bombed.
Well, you saw it, Mike. Was there a lot of people was there a lot of buzz about it or anything?
Only amongst the horror nerds.
Right.
But yeah, it was pretty empty. It wasn't the type of movie that regular people that go to movies go to see, unfortunately.
And a lot of horror nerds turned on it too, just because of the bleak.
Because a few months later, you had Return of the Living Dead, and that was much more successful. And there's like a couple.
That was the
later.
movie that really everybody talked about. It kind of blew Day out of the water as far as popularity goes.
It seemed like people just wanted more fun, which is Return. It seemed like they were kind of pushing back serious.
Zombies to me.
Well, it was the 80s, so do you want to party? Hey, let's party time. That was kind of the 80s. That Return was the 80s, just like Dawn was the 70s. But I love the location. It was a real place that's still in use. It's an underground storage facility where they store important documents and other items. Mm-hmm. It's beautiful that he stumbled upon that, because they didn't really have to do anything about it. They didn't have any restrictions. They didn't have to clean anything up. It was just... They just encamped. They all lived down there, and some of them had adverse health issues because of living down under the ground with like lung issues and different vitamin deficiencies and things that happened because they were down there. So I think that added really the location became a character all its own.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, if
it was really humid, and that damaged their equipment and stuff too, and it made everything slower. So it kind of fits that everybody down there is just miserable.
Yeah.
Yes. So, I mean, if it had been R-rated, obviously you wouldn't have gotten all these amazing effects and stuff like that. But you also would have, the trade-off would have been a much bigger, broader story. So,
well,
I don't know.
Every time he's messed with the system, though, I think trying to make a film within the Hollywood system is not George Romero. He's not built to work with people hanging over his shoulder, telling him what to do. Because Land of the Dead was R-rated. It came out, he kind of followed the rules. And
so this came out unrated?
Day of the Dead, yeah.
Okay.
Day of the Dead was unrated, yeah.
But they
do that anymore? Can they come out unrated?
No.
No, they just they don't.
They still have an
feel the
NC-17
point
on them if they release them at all.
They just nowadays there's no point. They just release a DVD straight to DVD if it's unrated.
They tried this. The last time they tried it was when AMC played Hatchet 2 for a day and a half and then pulled it.
Oh yeah,
Nobody went.
I heard about that. Yeah.
So.
Where people complaining, they can complain.
No, nobody went to see it, so they pulled it.
Oh,
did you hear about that eyebrow game though?
What?
It's got some pretty crazy eyebrow action in it.
Hatchet 2?
I can't remember. I've purged it from my memory.
Danielle Harris, she's got like crazy Botox. Her eyebrows like up here. One of them.
Yeah.
Oh,
I don't know.
They're coming out with a new one, aren't they?
There's a lot of garbage in that movie. I guess that's just part of it.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about some eyebrow movie. I'm like, eyebrow movie.
Man, you can't beat that eyebrow. Come for the hatchet, you stay for the eyebrow.
Stay for that brow, baby.
Nothing's going to make me watch that again. I watched all three, which is a feat in itself. I watched all three of those.
Part 4 is coming out.
They got worse and worse. Oh, I know. And people are excited about it. Like,
yeah.
They're using that guerrilla campaign again. They're like, oh, you didn't even know we were fucking filming it, and it's ready. It's coming
Yeah.
out tomorrow.
I just like how I know you guys as horror fans and not those people. Yes, stay away.
He's able to make a new Hatchet movie without anybody knowing because nobody cares. Nobody's looking for it. No,
Yeah.
you know what I
He
mean?
goes down. He's like, "Don't tell anybody, but we're shooting Hatchet here." And they're like, "What?"
Yeah, yeah.
And then it's like,
Yeah, okay, I won't
and
tell
shock till
anybody.
you drop. Say it's the greatest fucking horror movie ever made. And I'm like,
Yeah.
no.
And then after the movie comes out and everybody sees it sucks, they'll remove that. They'll remove that little quote. So
I have a special hatred in my heart for Hatchet because of how good they made the very, very first teaser thing look. Because it was just, because all it was just like some text and a screen and some awesome, really nice footage and quick shots of like the swamp and like the steam rising out of it. And I was like, yeah, this is a good thing, like slasher, southern gothic type thing. The bayou, great atmosphere, and then like you know. But this was like seeing nothing. It didn't show anything. It showed nothing, but it just had the music and everything. I was like, yeah, this could really be good, and it had all these quotes about how amazing it was going to be and stuff. And I was buying into it for a little while, but man,
I think Adam Green's a really talented filmmaker. I just don't like any of that Hatchet stuff.
yeah.
You know who fucking pisses me off in that movie? And this may sound racist, but I just can't stand the actor. You know the Asian guy in those movies, like the boat, the tour guide.
Yeah.
I can't stand that guy as an actor. Oh,
I know he's there, but I can't remember.
Well, Orc, tell us your thoughts on Day of the Dead, man.
Bub is a gangster. That's all I gotta say.
Okay, that's all you need to say. That should be on the. That should be like right here on the. Bub is a gangsta. Orc.
Certified.
I mean, this is 85, so zombie movies are a thing now, but they haven't, there weren't tons of them. So it's just like the first one that like suggested the idea of like zombies still retaining some very vague, bleak, not bleak, sorry, just keep saying bleak, some very vague, hazy memories of their former lives. Like, is this the first movie that suggests that?
It must have been.
You would see it used later in other movies too, right? Like that they would still sort of do the same things because they have some sort of memory of their human life.
Well, the important question is, did Chud 2 Bud the Chud come out before Day of the Dead?
Maybe this movie owes all its greatness to that.
I was going to say, because if Chud 2, Bud the Chud predates Day of the Dead, then Romero completely ripped off.
Romero's just a hack.
2, Bud the Chud.
Is that a mostly horror movie? I've only seen the first Chud. After Cole's like, don't fucking watch it.
I told him
watch
not
it.
to. I think
But get back, we're talking about Bud 2, the Chud. Jeez.
Where my hypothesis is that George Romero completely ripped off Chud 2 Bud the Chud for Day of the Dead. That's my hypothesis.
The only people that got ripped off are who saw that movie. Fuck that movie.
Yeah, did you guys get the Vestron release of that?
I'm going to now.
What I missed?
No.
Bud the Chud. I love that song too. It's awesome.
Bud the Chud. Bud the Chode. Smoker.
Does anybody have anything else they'd like to add about Day of the Dead?
It's definitely better than Bud the Chud.
I think that if you saw the movie and you didn't like it, know that you weren't alone. There were a lot of people who didn't like it, but again, like other movies, watch it a few more times.
Mm-hmm.
Watch the making of it. You'll appreciate it a lot.
I was the same. It grew on me. When I first saw it, I was kind of disappointed a little bit because Dawn was so, I don't know, it was so out there as far as the comedy and the entertainment value, and this was just so much drama. It was just so much with the personal, almost soap opera in some areas. But the more I watched it, the more I really appreciate it, and it's like I said, they're all up there, almost tied for number one with me. That for a while, Dawn was my go-to, but now Day is a good choice. I know we've talked about the remakes, but do we need to even mention the Day of the Dead remake?
I never seen
When you wipe your ass
it,
and what's on the
everybody
toilet paper after you wipe your ass, that's the remake.
Well, one guy's
You've seen it. Throw it in the toilet and flush it.
One guy's a vegetarian. When he gets bit, he becomes a vegetarian zombie.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then
It's a pointless creature.
named Bud.
Yeah, instead of bug.
Now, what I don't
And
understand
the
is
zombies are Spider-Man. Climbing on the walls.
I never saw it, but I'm kind of curious. What happened because Jeffrey Reddick wrote this. He, of course, created Final Destination.
And
Steve
Miner
Miner directed it.
Steve Miner directed it. Yeah,
So-
from what I saw an interview with Jeffrey Reddick not long ago. He said that I can't remember exactly, but I mean it was the usual stuff of he wrote a script, but then it went into the hands of other people who rewrote it, and it got rewrote, and Steve Miner kind of was not that into it, and so
I think.
yeah.
Who's the rapper guy in it? He's like a rapper guy.
I don't
Mina Suvari, and then the rapper guy, like
Isn't
Nick
Ving Rhames in
Cannon or
it, too?
something.
And they put Ving Rhames in
Oh,
it,
that's
right?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ving Rhames like plays the exact same character. Only he's like the Rhodes. But
Yeah.
he's like a cop or something. Yeah.
And fucking Nick Cannon.
Yeah, Nick Cannon. Yeah. I totally blocked that part out. Well,
I was
have any of you guys seen Day of the Dead 2 Contagion?
no.
Clips.
Because I've not even gone that far.
I will give it a look this Halloween just for torture, I guess.
I don't know if I can.
I survived a lot worse.
Commentary. We'll do a commentary on that.
I survived the Seagal marathon. So
Yeah.
I survived Day of the Dead 2 Contagion.
And they're actually remaking Day of the Dead
Again. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
There's
It's supposed
another
to come
Day of
out
the
this
Dead-
year.
Yeah, another Day of the Dead remake.
I haven't seen any of these. I never saw the Night of the Living Dead 3D with what's his name from Devil's Rejects.
Oh, I forgot about that one.
Oh,
I heard that
no.
one was really bad.
Sid Haig.
Sid
Sid
Haig.
Haig. Yeah, I
Sid
never saw
Haig.
that either. So.
The remake of Day of the Dead was double disappointing. One, I really loved the original, and two, Steve Miner was attached to it. I used to have respect for Steve Miner.
Oh, don't go there. Oh.
When I saw his name as a director on a film, what happened to him? I mean, that was obviously a paycheck, and he gave no shits whatsoever.
Clearly.
How can you let your career end like that?
And didn't it go straight to DVD? Pretty much.
I pretty
Should've went
much,
straight
yeah.
to hell.
Straight to hell.
With
That
a
sounds
DVD
like a-
cover where the zombie puked in eyeballs.
Oh yeah, God,
Sci-Fi Channel.
that was horrible artwork. Horrible. Everything
Everything
about that movie.
about that movie was horrible. I felt so
Garbage.
bad for the actress. Like, oh,
Mina
good for
Suvari?
this. Yeah, she's not the greatest actress in the world, but she deserves better material than that bullshit.
Dude, he's a
America needed
vegetarian
that.
zombie. That's
Let's check.
groundbreaking.
Oh,
Let's-
maybe he doesn't like meat, Jay.
A zombie, a vegetarian zombie that suffers from puppy love.
Wow.
Yeah, because he was in love with Mina Suvari.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Meat is
And he
murder.
sacrifices himself to save them from the zombies. What?
I think
Something.
what's really interesting is that for years George Romero, through the '90s, early 2000s, wanted to make another Living Dead movie. Nobody would give him any money. He was trying to get this movie off the ground called Dead Reckoning, which eventually became Land of the Dead. But nobody would give him any money until 28 Days Later, Dawn of the Dead, all these other zombie movies that were stealing from him came out, made a bunch of money. Then everyone decided to give him another chance. So Land of the Dead was his opportunity.
But he
Pretty
just before that though, he got screwed over by the producers of Resident Evil.
Yeah.
Because he had written the script and he was going to direct the first movie. Capcom was on board. The Japanese investors loved his ideas. They wanted to go with it, but the American producer studio was like, no, we want somebody new and fresh and hip in here. And they kind of kicked him to the side. And I think that was kind of like the final thing that really just broke him. Because I think
And he was also close.
so he's like,
Yeah, he
fine,
was
I'll
also
just go
supposed to
make
do
my
the
old
Bond
movies. And I don't know. It was really sad. He was such a nice guy. And to see him be treated like that all through the 90s. And then Resident Evil, which was based on his work, basically. I mean, he should have been the one to do that movie. And I felt bad for him. So I cut him some slack when it comes to the later Dead films. Because I kind of think that not only was he ripped off, but he was screwed in other ways in the process.
Well, yeah, he even directed a commercial for Resident Evil 2 overseas. So
Yeah, I've
he,
seen that. Yeah.
so, but they're
There
like,
was-
fuck that, get Paul Wild Stallion Anderson to do it.
There
There was
I don't want
a-
to think of a Resident Evil movie series. Just makes me sad.
There was I forget which Call of Duty game it was, but they had the zombies version of it was like Romero. And like at one point, a big zombie version of Romero comes out, and you have to like fight him.
Oh yeah.
I don't remember which game that was, but
Is that not a Call of Duty?
that was a Call. Yeah, it was. I don't remember which Call of Duty it was, but yeah.
I just remember every year he would come to the Fangoria conventions in LA, and people would ask him, "Are you going to make your next Dead film?" Don't have the money yet. Don't have the interest yet. Like every year, it was so great to see him. But every time he came on stage, you knew you were going to be depressed for about an hour about hearing about projects he could never get financed. And so when Land of the Dead got financed, I was so happy. I was like, thank God he's going to be able to make something. Because I mean, it'd been a long time since Bruiser.
Yeah.
So.
I went to see Land of the Dead with a ton of enthusiasm because I was riding the wave of how much I really liked the remake of Dawn, and it had made me revisit, the Romero movies, and I was just like pumped. It was the right time. It was 2005. We already had the remake of Dawn. We already had Shaun of the Dead. We already had 28 Days Later. This was the explosion that led to it going too far. So I was so psyched to go to Land.
And unfortunately, when I saw Land,
such an underwhelming movie. It's not bad. I don't want to call it bad, but
it's the last good
it's
one,
bad.
in my
It's
opinion.
okay.
In my opinion.
We can call it bad.
I saw it in the theater. It was okay, but it was kind of. That's why I'm not sure if he had the money for Day. It was just weird seeing like John Leguizamo.
Yeah, this was.
I really wish he wasn't there.
You get all these A-list actors like John Leguizamo.
He loves Spawn.
This was Romero working within the studio system.
Yeah, that's what.
And I think it was his vision was limited. I mean, he had Dennis Hopper, he had Asia Argento, but it was like he was almost contractually obligated to have like John Leguizamo was hot at the time or something, so contractually obligated to have John Leguizamo. And not that I think he's bad in the movie, it's just kind of. Sticks out.
I don't like any of the characters.
But compared to Survival of the Dead, man, it's good.
Was he limited because of money, or were people on his ass?
I would say limited just because of the studio. Like the studio, I'm sure they wanted a 90-minute quick and clean zombie movie. They were more interested in his name on a zombie movie than the zombie movie.
Mm-hmm.
When I saw it, I was the only one in the theater. It was kind of depressing.
Oh man,
I
saw it with a lot of people in a fairly
the
big
return
theater.
of Romero, and I'm there by myself thinking, "Oh, this sucks."
Mm-hmm.
But I thoroughly enjoyed the film. I don't know if I look at it. I just rewatched it recently. Now, John Carpenter's Vampires and Ghost of Mars. Now, Land of the Dead almost seems like a movie that was written by John Carpenter in that period and directed by George Romero, just because of the way the characters are. Asia Argento, and you got John Leguizamo, and
I can see that. Yeah, I don't like
the guy that drives the Dead Reckoning, and the characters in the Dead Reckoning, and then you got Pillsbury, the big SWAT guy, and it's just the lines of dialogue they have and the scenes they get into. It just seems like something John Carpenter would have written in that period of time. So I enjoy those films that he made in that period of time. Now, I know Ghost of Mars isn't really considered a great film, but I like the film. So I really enjoyed Land of the Dead. The one thing that kind of bothered me was for budgetary reasons, his embracing of computer-generated images.
Enhancements.
There were some scenes where the zombies were all CGI, and it looked terrible. The worst scene is when that guy's arm gets munched on by the flip head zombie. I don't know if you guys remember that scene where the zombie flips its head up, and it just like... It's just so ridiculously fake looking that it just like, oh, that was horrible.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So there were some scenes in there that was like, oh, but had Simon Pegg and the guys from Shaun of the Dead in there. It was kind of like a love letter to his previous films, but within the studio system, it does have limitations. But overall, I really enjoy some of the characters and the situations they were in. How they took, like, Bub is now. That characterization of a zombie is now like waking up the other zombies to take back what's been taken away from them because they're tired of being victimized by these bands of humans that just come into town and take what they want and shoot a bunch of them. So now they're like wanting to make them. I don't know. It was just it seemed like the evolution that he was kind of going for with Bub.
Mm-hmm.
So in a way, it worked for me, and I really enjoy the film.
I really liked it too. My only issue with it is that it's the end of the original series because Day of the Dead reboots the whole thing, and I'm sorry, Diary of the Dead reboots the whole thing. So that's kind of a bummer because it's kind of a placeholder movie. The movie begins in chaos, ends in chaos, and you kind of like want to see where we're going to go from there. But he just kind of, I think that's the problem with the last two is these three zombie movies aren't a trilogy. They're just three different stories in that universe.
I know at the end of Land, though, they're leaving. He got his dead reckoning, and him and his crew, they're taking off to go find something else to do.
Right.
The evil rich people have been defeated, and the city's been given back to the regular people. And the zombies have decided to move on to their own area, so they've kind of self-segregated. They didn't kill everybody. They just wanted to kill Dennis Hopper's character, basically, because they were able to realize that he was the one behind everything. I don't know. It's kind of reaching there a little bit, but they did leave, and as Dead Reckoning's leaving, the zombies are leaving on another bridge, and there's that moment where he stops, and the head zombie kind of recognizes him, and they gestures toward him, and then they keep on walking.
Yeah, doesn't he say something like they're going to shoot the zombies with the Dead Reckoning, and he's like, "Don't." They're just looking for a place to. They're just looking for I forget the exact dialogue.
Something like they're just doing what we're doing. They're just looking for a place.
They're just looking for a place. Yeah.
Because the head zombie kind of sees them and kind of acknowledges them, because he's the only one that's like fully retained most of his intelligence. So I thought that was a good moment, and I thought it ended pretty well. The regular people are out of the ghetto, and now the zombies are leaving them alone, and they can try to rebuild their society. And I don't know, I kind of liked it.
I saw it in the theater. I remember being okay. I liked some of the music. It's funny, one of the pieces of music that was used in the very first trailer to Rambo 4. Like the 3.5-minute trailer. It's like, wow, this is music from Land of the Dead. That's weird. And then when guts are thrown up, I'm like, oh, that's why. I thought the characters were weak, and the CGI enhancements I didn't care for. But the characters, like the lead guy, was
bland,
boring. Yeah, bland.
Yeah,
it was. Aja Argento, she was hot, but
I think she was kind of
bland. They're all bland and forgettable. That's the problem.
Yeah. I think that's the weakest part for me is the characters. Like, considering I had seen Dawn and Dead, I really liked those characters, and then this was, I don't know if it's the writing or the cast.
Romero.
It's the writing. It's the writing because the next two zombie movies you can't remember the cast there either.
Yeah.
It's a lot like a Romero movie stripped of personality and stuff, because there's nothing wrong with the setting or the setup. It's like, okay, here's like how these like little towns work in a zombie apocalypse world, and it's got a lot of the hallmarks, and it's got like some stupid despot ruling at the top and Dennis Hopper. Like, all that setup is fine. It all makes sense to me, and they've got people doing behind the closed doors deals and all this shit, and I don't know, what is it? They've got like games where they make the zombies fight and stuff like that. Like,
that's cool.
That's fine. Like I buy into that world completely and stuff. It's just I just don't feel they do anything with it really, and the characters are one of the main reasons I find the characters really flat and uninteresting.
Yeah. They call them sky flowers, whatever the fireworks are. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, just
George
introducing lingo.
Dennis Hopper is good. I don't want to say too much negative about this movie, man, because I know this is a tribute. So,
what does he say when he's like getting into his limo and he's shooting like somebody? I can't.
Well, he says like zombies, man. They creep me out. Like he says, he's like the first person in any of the Dead movies to say zombies, I think.
Jay, look at me when I Living Dead. You're not going to get more negative if I talk about Land of the Dead. So go for it.
I had a buddy of mine that worked at the movie theater when this came out. And I was huge Romero fan at the time. Like, I had just bought the DVDs for, night and day, and just watching them all the time, getting prepared for the movie. And I go, and obviously my expectations were way too high. Hated everything about the movie. And then I was telling Mike this on his channel, when he watched them recently. And I pick up the DVD because the DVD's got the unrated version, right?
Ooh,
much better.
Yeah.
Much better. I don't know, man. Like, there's a lot of the zombie stuff I don't really mind. I think it's pretty cool. That CGI stuff is pretty terrible.
Yeah.
But the whole stuff with Big Daddy. If Big Daddy wasn't in the thing at all, I think it would have been a much better movie. I don't like the concept. I don't like what's going on there.
Do you
That's why I
think?
said I wish it was.
I can't remember.
Bub.
Is that the?
No, I don't wish it was Bub either. I
That's
just
a
wish it
smart
was.
zombie.
It's almost like Big Daddy, and then Carpenter had Big Daddy Mars from
That's
Ghost
what I
of
mean.
Mars.
It feels very similar to me as the Ghost of Mars. It very characters,
I can't remember
the
Ghost of
I feel about the
situations.
same way about both films too.
Ghost of Mars is so
But-
You
awful.
can't remember Ghost of Mars, Cole. It's a fucking
Ghost of Mars is
classic.
one of the worst things I've ever had to see.
Even Ice Cube came out against John Carpenter, said, "I only did that movie because my man John was directing it, but what a piece of shit that was." And I'm like,
I mean, I
I
felt
really-
I don't like the part where
I
Should
like
have
don't
it.
Escape
remember
from
it.
Mars, but
I
Escape from
literally
LA
I
was-
remember nothing from that movie. Just
I-
the people
Oh yeah,
on
that
Mars.
guy did. Are we there yet? He shouldn't be fucking talking.
Yeah, we need hold on. We need to table that right there.
yeah.
Fucking did
Oh,
right
Ice Cube.
along 1 and 2.
Oh yeah,
He shouldn't
Ice
be
Cube
He's a legit
standard is
actor.
below his. Yeah, that's below Ice Cube's usual standard of awesomeness.
Are we there yet? And are we done yet?
I
Are
saw
you
him on
done with your
ESPN,
career
he's like,
yet?
yeah, dog. He's like, Friday, man, it's a cult classic. And I'm like, that's the only good movie you ever fucking did.
Yeah,
Even
I wasn't.
though
A
like
hip-hop,
Ghost of Mars.
I wasn't a hip hop fan when I was a kid, but I can just imagine how disillusioning it must be for like people around my age who are big hip hop fans, like seeing all their hip hop heroes just turn into like weird white bread sitcom types. I mean, Snoop doing a show with Martha Stewart, and
So Jay, with the Big Daddy, do you not like that he was smart, or
Yeah, I
that
don't
wasn't
like that he
explained
was
like
smart.
Bub? Because Bub
Yeah.
was smart.
I don't like any of that stuff.
But do you like it with Bub? And
It's
David
different.
did?
I mean, it's
Bub at
This is
least.
the
Or
evolution
talk
of
about-
that, though.
With Bub, he was being trained in a way. At least it was more believable, I guess. I guess this other zombie, he's called Big Daddy. I guess I don't know.
And
Just
his
like seems to
racist-
just like have consciousness on his own.
Right.
But I mean, that's not like that doesn't ruin it for me. Like I don't know. They push it
Well, it's
kind
not
of
like he walks out of his gas station like, "Hey, what you doing in my neighborhood?" You know, he kind of walks out and he hears the ding at the gas station and he comes out and he grabs the gas thing and there's no car there and it's really robotic and he slowly kind of comes out of it, kind of the fog, like he's sobering up from being
like,
stoned or
I
something.
get what they're
I
doing,
need to
but
go
I
find
don't
George
find
Bush.
it. I don't find it entertaining to watch though, because they try really hard to like make us see that like he's whatever mental capacity he has left, he's really straining to figure things out and put things together, like connect things. Like I get it, but it's not really fun to watch. Like him slowly figure out how things work and how to do things. Like
But even with the
Like,
series, wasn't Bub trains? So when someone had to train him?
yeah,
do
somebody
that?
trained Bub. Yeah, that's what I'm
So
saying.
when
There's-
someone
this is
trained this
there.
new guy?
Well, this is the
There's
thought
suggestion
that
that he
maybe
wasn't, but it's
eventually
like
on
an
their
evolution.
own,
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
maybe eventually on their own, they would eventually come out of it.
why have that though? Why have that at all? Why not just have a bunch of fucking zombies attacking George Bush in his ivory tower?
The evolution. Because
George
again-
Bush.
well, that's what it was. I mean,
Yeah.
Dennis Hopper is supposed to be John Ashcroft.
I'm not even
No,
gonna
I
fucking
didn't.
call him
I
out.
wasn't
Somebody.
aware
That's
Romero's-
exactly what they're
that was
doing.
what Romero was going for.
I wasn't aware of
More
the political ramifications at the
Politics,
time.
shoving it down your throat.
The
Yeah, it was the 1% keeping down everybody else. And well, look, I have games for them. I allow them to gamble, and I make their lives better.
Well, yeah,
was
but I
fine
mean,
with that.
that's any people in power. I mean, that goes back to fucking Rome, bread and circuses,
Yeah.
right?
I do like that one scene when he shoots that guy, and then he gets that call. He's like, "I really wish you would have called me sooner."
Yeah. I think my favorite part of is that Dennis Hopper's just
Yeah, I love
The
that.
only, the only thing I liked
You know what I
about
mean?
that movie was like looking at Argento because she was all
Well,
made up like in
She was
black with
she
the
was
cup.
looking good, but she was miscast. I don't think those lines worked well with her. She had a lot of the comic relief lines, and they just fell flat. It just didn't seem natural.
I feel like she probably got special treatment on set of that movie.
Well, yeah,
Like they
yeah,
probably just like let her do whatever. Like she's like, I want some funny lines. I don't want to just be a sex object. And they're like, okay, here's some funny lines, I guess.
Well, what's kind of cool about Dennis Hopper being in it is this is the second time that I can think of where he's like in support of like an independent horror artist. I mean, think about he came and did Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 for Toby
That's
Hooper.
true. Like he had no reason to do that movie. I do give him credit for that. Like
And then he
that movie
called it the worst
you
movie
couldn't say it
ever
was
made.
beneath him or whatever, and he did it.
Little toot 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 toot.
And then went on to say it's the worst movie he's ever made. Chainsaw 2.
Yeah, well,
Really, Firestarter 2 is not the worst. All right, good.
I actually rewatched Texas Chainsaw 2 the other day, and I just love Hopper's performance when he's underground singing the hymns and "We shall come rejoicing."
I'm the Lord of the harvest.
Exactly. Yeah, I love it, man. I love it. Like I remember, I think it was Toby Hooper said that like during some scenes, Hopper would spin himself around in a circle to make himself dizzy.
Yeah.
And then so he would be just totally discombobulated and, like drunk and stuff. And I thought that was just weird. Like can you imagine Dennis Hopper just spinning himself around, getting really dizzy?
That was during one of his moments of sobriety.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was.
He couldn't actually rely on the actual substances to do that anymore, so he had to imitate that.
Well, and I mean, can you believe that Dennis Hopper was clean, completely clean when he made Chainsaw 2 and Blue Velvet?
But he did 4 in a row. You said, right? Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Blue Velvet, River's Edge, and Hoosiers. And those are like the 4 greatest movies he's ever made.
I love all 4 of those movies.
yeah, those are good performances by him.
Yeah.
Back to Land of the Dead, man. I think a lot of people give this one a pass.
Compared to the next 2, yeah.
I think people are like, look, I know it sucks, but it's Romero. Look, it's got Dennis Hopper's in it. Look at the zombies. Oh man, it came out in theaters. It was awesome.
I actually really do kind of want to see it again because it's been so long.
You got a lot of hate. You got a lot of hate in your heart, Jay.
I'll tell you what. I'll watch it. I still got that fucking DVD if I hadn't thrown it in the garbage yet. I'll watch it again, and I'll see if I change my mind.
I don't think anybody here thinks you should change your mind. I don't.
Well,
It's a popcorn movie. I
think
enjoy
that's a
watching.
perfectly reasonable response.
Jay the Stingray is just stinging this movie.
Maybe I'm not being fair. I'll watch it again. I will. I've only seen it 2 times.
I think you're totally being fair.
But honestly, I think that's a perfectly reasonable reaction.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a huge fan of Land of the Dead. It's definitely not one that I go back and rewatch or have any desire to go back and rewatch on any kind of a regular basis. But
I have a desire to watch it now. But
definitely would not give it a glowing review. I just said it was okay.
Yeah.
Compared to the next 2, it's okay.
Yeah.
I never.
It definitely benefits being before the next 2, but I actually enjoy it as a standalone film. I think it's fun.
We could just go ahead and end the show now, guys.
I want it.
Well, no, because the anger's going to come out in me for the next 2.
Let's check and see.
Are we even doing those?
The poll.
I didn't see them.
Let's talk. We'll talk about them briefly, but first let's check and see what. Let's check on the voting here. And okay. So we have got right now. Dawn of the Dead is in the lead by 1 point over Day of the Dead, and Night of the Living Dead has now fallen back to 3rd place. So
Thank you.
Had the early lead, couldn't hold it.
Nope, couldn't hold it. We've got 21 total votes so far, and Dawn of the Dead is leading with 8 votes. So if you guys vote on which of Romero's big 3 zombie films you want to see us do a live commentary for, follow the link in the description and let us know.
Mm-hmm.
So let's move on, and I mean, we would be remiss if we didn't talk about Survival of the Dead and Diary of the Dead, at least somewhat briefly.
Considering one of them is his last movie,
I'm kind of curious though. How many of us own these movies? Because I do.
I own Diary.
I have Diary on Blu-ray.
I bought them for $2 each just to listen to the George Romero commentary.
But now let me ask you guys this, because when Diary of the Dead was first coming out, I remember hearing really good things about it. Do you guys remember hearing good things about that movie before it came out? Okay.
Yeah.
And I actually thought
I still hear good things about it.
Well, and I kind of thought, okay, so we had Hollywood Romero with Land of the Dead. Now we're going back to lower budget. You know what I mean? Romero doing what Romero having more freedom, and it's getting really good reviews.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know if I dreamt those good reviews or not after seeing the film, but I wanted to see, do you guys remember there being a lot of positive buzz and good reviews for Diary before it came out?
I do.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
On the DVD, there's like fucking 10 good reviews
And
on the front and back of it.
I remember going to one of the conventions, and there was a few actors that were in Land of the Dead that he also used again in Diary. They played different characters. And I remember asking, well, what's going on with Diary of the Dead? And they're like, oh, man, this is George going back to his roots. We're going back indie. You know, it's going to be released Dimension Extreme, but still he made this independent. I was like, all right. He goes, we're going to go back to the original day and see like what happened with another group of characters. And I was like, that sounds interesting. And then it just seemed like the movie got a lot of good reviews, but it seemed like the good reviews that the Blair Witch movie recently got too. It was like all these positive reviews came out, and the movie came out. It just, you know,
right.
I didn't hear anything.
And what is the timeline for Diary? Because I don't remember hardly anything about that movie.
Same night.
Saw it once. I saw it years. It's the same night as what?
Ben and Barbara.
Okay.
Supposed to be in 1968.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we got Texas Chainsaw 3D logic.
Even though they all have the cameras and the cell phones and stuff, and it's supposed to be not 1968, but it's supposed to be the same night.
Yeah,
for whatever reason. Yeah.
Okay. That's very confusing and odd. That's just weird.
Yeah.
But Mike, I know you recently went back and revisited Diary. Your thoughts?
I knew it was coming. I knew this one was coming. Blair Witch of the Dead. Hated every single character in this movie. I fucking hate. I don't think the found footage bullshit works with this film. And it took me out of this movie. I was just like, would please somebody stop this shit and show me a movie? How many fucking times do I have to listen to, what do you do with the camera? Turn up the camera. Would you put the camera down? What's up with the camera? The camera. Fuck all of you. Whatever goodness could have been in this film was completely ruined by how it was put together. The entire format. I hated every character. There was nothing about this film to like. The only thing I can pull from it is that he was kind of at the forefront of the YouTube era, where everybody's, behind the camera and putting things on the internet, and they're putting their life on the internet, and everybody's, starting to become fascinated with technology, and they're kind of separating themselves from real life and living in the internet. Okay, that was kind of his message, and it was kind of cool because it was very. If you look now versus then, that was 2007. YouTube was still in its infancy. MySpace was still ruling the world at that time.
MySpace.
It was very, I don't know. It was very forethinking, I thought, because we now live in the era which he predicted back in 2007, right?
And I'm no longer friends with Tom.
But fuck that movie. That's my review of Diary of the Dead. Fuck that movie.
MySpace of the Dead.
Sounds about right.
Okay, there you go.
I've not seen this movie because there were two reasons. One was it was found footage, and back then I hated it as much as I hate it now. And two, like Ryan did actually see it, and it made him like mad. Like he was really upset by the movie too. Like he's not the type to go on long rants or anything like that. So his usual thing is just like, fuck that movie. So I was just like, okay, I trust your judgment on this one, and I just never saw it, which is why I also never saw Survival, because people were like, it's even worse. So
you don't even need to see it. Okay.
Kevin Smith likes to tell this story how, like in terms of hockey, but in terms of also being creative in Hollywood, is you don't want to chase the puck. You want to be where the puck's going to be. And in all of Romero's films up to now, he was always where the puck was going to be, right? This one, he was chasing the puck. He was chasing it because of the Blair Witch and all that stuff coming up.
It's a fair
metaphor.
Trying
to find a cheap, quick way to do it. And I think the found footage thing kind of lent to his budget, and it was just kind of like, well, that's what's popular. It fits my budget. Let's just go with that. And it was a mistake. It was. I know I still have love and respect for Romero, so I don't hate him for making this movie. I just don't like the movie. I just think it's a terrible movie.
Right.
So I'm not insulting him or his memory when I say fuck that movie. I'm just saying fuck that movie.
How much better would the film have been if it had not been found footage?
It could have been better,
Stupid fucking story.
It's still a pretty bad story from what I hear.
but still the bad story and the characters were still horrible.
Yeah.
The acting was god fucking awful.
Yeah, movies like this just make me sad too, because as you said, like, okay, so
The best fucking character is a deaf Amish guy.
True.
that's pretty
Forgot about him.
That's progressive.
So that says a lot.
But like we said, because there was, as you said, guys said there was like buzz for this movie because after he did the Hollywood thing, he's going back to his roots, sort of thing. Then you find out like all these people are like somewhat involved and excited, like Quentin Tarantino, Wes Craven, Guillermo del Toro, Simon Pegg, Stephen King. They all have little cameos in the movie and stuff, but it's just like none of that has anything to do with the quality of it whatsoever. It's just like, geez, maybe Guillermo del Toro should have just directed it or something. I don't know.
They could have given him some more money.
Yeah, they could have, yeah. But no, they thought they were doing a huge favor by doing voice cameos. But
And that's another thing. If you thought the CG in Land of the Dead was bad,
Yeah,
Dire the
Yeah.
it got
Dead,
worse.
Oh,
a guy-
there's even
something
more.
gets like acid on a face and looks like a cartoon.
Yeah,
Well-
and after listening to some interviews with George, I know he was trying to defend his use of CGI, but at one point he actually had the nerve to say, "I dare Tom Savini to do something better than that." And I was just like, "Are you fucking kidding me?"
He did.
Like
It's called Day of
cartoon
the Dead.
bullshit. You're George for fucking Romero. Do you need new glasses? Because that shit looks horrible. I'm sorry, dude. I
Well-
respect you, but you're wrong.
Well, you haven't seen anything yet until you
Yeah.
see the fire extinguisher survival
Yeah.
of the dead scene. But anyway,
Yeah.
does anybody have anything they want to add to Diary of the Dead?
We're gonna go there.
Skip it, please, for your own sanity.
It was a badly told story with horrible acting and characters. The fucking best character is a deaf Amish guy, which it fucking tells the whole story there. And then CGI was horrible. The characters are so fucking stupid. There's even a scene where like the guy's just holding the camera and the girl is screaming off screen, and then she comes goes, "You need to put down the camera to help me." It's
It's
At the end of the movie, they end up in a panic room, and that's the end. They didn't have any food. They didn't have any way of existing, but hey, they're safe.
yeah, just fuck it.
It's a terrible movie. You probably shouldn't watch it, but if you can find it for $1, you might want to own it as a completionist. Shock to your drop on the back says, without question, the master of horror is back. So here you go.
Well, that's why I never go on Shock Till You Drop.
Yeah, I own it. I'm a completionist when it comes to some things. Yeah, but I'm never watching it again unless I have to.
Yeah. This one doesn't even make me morbidly curious the way some do. Like, no, I just don't need to, because it just seems like a combination of all the things I really hated at the time and still really don't like. Where I just feel like, yeah, you go back 10 years ago, man, I was actually worse then in a way, because I was just like, wow, horror, because Rob Zombie's Halloween had come out and stuff, and I just thought like horror was like at maybe its lowest ebb mid 2000s.
It makes
I don't know
Land
if it's
look like
gotten
a
much better
masterpiece.
So yeah, I wasn't going to touch it.
Piz, what are your thoughts on Diary? Was like you first seen it?
Is he frozen on us?
Pizzo?
That's his review.
Well, we know what Jay's
There's nothing
opinion
to
is.
say. Yeah.
Pizzo was frozen, okay.
Should we say into Survival? Has anybody seen Survival?
I have.
Yeah.
So Survival follows characters that are actually in Diary at some point, right?
Well, here's the thing.
Military guys, like in one scene.
Here's
The
the
main
Diary.
military guys from.
So you get a
Diary.
scene where you get like something similar. It's like a different point of view of a scene from Diary in Survival.
Yes.
Okay.
But
Well,
Cole,
there's-
the thing is about Survival of the Dead is that if this was like years later and there was like these isolated families on this island, okay, I can maybe accept that. But this is
Sure.
supposed to be in the first 20 days of the zombie apocalypse, and we're to believe that society has crumbled to the point where families are at war with each other on an island.
Well, it's
It's ridiculous.
Hatfields and McCoys with zombies.
Right.
That's the
Oh,
annoying thing about it.
Okay, so that's what
All you
it
need
is.
to know, Cole, is a zombie rides a horse. That's all you need to know.
Let's see. We got the O'Flings and the Muldoons.
Listen, we got
Very nice.
lucky. We got lucky
Yeah.
because on the Blu-ray or DVD of Survival of the Dead, he has an interview with Tony Timpone from formerly Fangoria saying that his next one was going to be the black and white film noir zombie movie. So
I think film noir is awesome, but I don't think it fits with everything, and I don't know if it would fit with zombies.
yeah.
But Red Shirt Pictures.
If you really
did
want that, just watch The Original Night of the Dead. It's black and white.
say the Red Shirt Pictures documentary on the DVD of Survival of the Dead is actually better than the movie.
I can believe it.
Because our friend Michael is actually in the film as a zombie, and he was explaining about the night they shot the scene where he was a featured zombie and actually ate one of the characters, that it was so cold where they shot that the gelatin that everything that was made out of froze. So he said it was like tearing open a frozen turkey wearing mittens of pain. Which I thought was a very funny line. But yeah, so if you get the DVD, get it for his documentary on it, because it's much better than the movie.
I found one thing to like about it. Apparently, George Stroumboulopoulos does a cameo on it. I like him. You guys probably wouldn't know him, but he was sort of a big deal for a lot of years in Canada.
Yeah, I just, the Hatfields and McCoys versus zombies thing is the one thing that I hate about that movie. I like it better than Diary, actually.
Yeah.
I know that's kind of saying something, but
Well, at least it's not found footage again, is it?
yeah, at least it's not found footage again. You have decent actors in this one. That some of the actors are pretty good, like the two heads of the family, those two guys that go back to childhood hating each other, and those guys do a good job. And the military guys, he actually has a little bit more of a personality than he did in Diary, because he was just in it for very quick. But I like how they showed from his perspective what was going on. But yeah, it's not good.
It was done so poorly. You even have an ending scene with the two of them as zombies trying to shoot each other, and the fucking moon is like this gigantic, and you're like, yeah, I
Yeah,
get
the
what you're
feud
doing.
continued after they
The
died.
zombies are trying to kill each other?
Yeah, the two heads
Yeah,
of the
because
families
they
die.
hate each other
Oh,
so
I get it.
much
Wow,
that when
yeah,
they
I
become
get it.
zombies, they're still trying to
They
kill
really
each
had to
other.
hammer in their message there, yeah. That's
Yeah.
even the
Yeah.
zombies. Yeah.
Yeah.
But hey, it proves that you can train a zombie to eat something other than humans, because they started eating horses.
Of course.
Well, yeah, I would figure they would eat anything. Like,
It's-
yeah, that's how I always thought zombies worked. They just ate
Yeah.
whatever they could find.
But one
Already
family wanted to
survived.
wipe them out, just like Rhodes. The other family wanted to try to, hey, they're our loved ones. We have to try to
Pacify.
live with them. And,
Pacifist.
yeah, and so we're trying to get them to eat other things so they won't eat us. Well, that's bullshit. We should just all kill them. Fuck it, let's fight.
This movie sounds awesome when I just read
Yeah.
about it. It has a zombie riding a horse at one point. Let's see
Yeah.
that.
Well, what can we? I
That's
mean,
funny.
forget about these last two. Just pretend like they don't exist,
That's what I do, and I haven't even seen them, so it's easy.
and don't let the fact that they're not very good throw any kind of shade on just how good Night, Dawn, and Day are, and even Land has its moments. So,
It's a singular
mean,
vision
it's still a
carried through
good-
4 movies.
yes, exactly.
It's a really great body of work.
Yes.
It's seminal moments in horror and pop culture in general. I mean, to kick off such a phenomenon in the way the whole zombie thing, which is going to keep going. And as we said, it's kind of out of steam at the moment, but it'll, there'll be more good zombie movies in the future. We're just kind of at a low point right now.
If you look at George Romero, even if Diary of the Dead and Survival of the Dead, as weak as they can be, there's still, you can tell that there is an artist behind these movies. Whereas when you look at Dario Argento and the Three Mothers trilogy, you can't even believe the same guy who's making the third Mother made Suspiria. Whereas George Romero, you can see a consistency at least of themes of
Mother of
character.
Tears?
Yeah, Mother of Tears. That's it. The third Mother.
Yeah, Mother of Tears is kind of unrecognizable. You're like, what happened to him?
Yeah,
Mother of Tears is loads better than a lot of his other films from around that period of time.
that's true.
Well, from
That's
that
true.
period of time, certainly.
That's true.
I mean, I could watch Mother of Tears. I can't watch that. Whatever. Some of the other the Card Player. That's the one.
I've never seen it.
Card Player.
I've attempted to watch two, and they were so awful. I turned. One was the one called Giallo, and one was the Dracula, and they were both unwatchable.
Oh yeah. Oh, I forgot about Dracula.
Like I made 10 or 15 minutes on both of them, and they were just.
Dracula's horrible.
It's amazing. Like it had that Yui Bowl quality, where like within like the first 2 minutes, so you already know how terrible it is.
Yeah, that's unfortunately that's true with Dracula. That's true with Dracula. Yeah. I never thought I'd compare Argento or even say Argento and Uwe Boll's names.
But no, it
Fuck
feels
you.
that way.
Jesus Christ.
Uva, you gotta love him.
It just feels ugly.
Romero
and
is responsible for creating a genre.
Yes.
Now, that is definitely a legacy that no matter what else he did, it will not diminish that.
yeah.
He made, these films weren't his. I mean, have you ever seen, we'll talk about him next week, but there's some other films in his filmography that don't quite live up to, his status. But he created a genre. He was a hell of a nice guy. A lot of people liked him. I think he was a great social commentator. And no matter what you think about his last 3 Dead films, I think his legacy will remain untarnished.
His place in history is assured.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. No other filmmaker can make that boast. George Romero created a subgenre, period. And it's a subgenre that, as he created the modern zombie. He created modern zombie or contemporary zombie fiction, period. So, I mean, that's...
And because he was one of the nicest guys in the world, if you ever met him, that will carry his reputation forever, even with the films. So.
Yeah.
We talk about Carpenter. Carpenter didn't create slasher films, but he brought them back to the forefront with Halloween.
Right.
Tobe Hooper, same thing with Chainsaw. And Craven with Nightmare and some of the films he did. These guys didn't create subgenres, but they made them popular and brought them to the forefront. He created a subgenre, which is mind-boggling to think of, because nobody can. I don't think anybody could do that in this day.
No. Let me give some shout outs here. Our buddy Jewel is watching tonight. Voorhees Chasing Ghosts. How are you, buddy? Martin says, glad you guys are back. Well, we are glad to be back. Jerp Penn says, B-Movie Mike is great. So you got a new fan out there, Mike.
Thank you.
Let's see. Baby Herman says, you can't piss on hospitality. That's very true.
It is true.
Very
That's my favorite line from Land of the Dead.
I can't remember.
Jeremy McNeil says Friday and Boys in the Hood are Ice Cube's best movies. I'd agree.
It's not a lot to choose from there. Those rise to the top rather quickly, I think.
Well, gee, Boys in the Hood, he played himself. Basically. Good. NWA, if you know the history. Never mind.
Our buddy Perry Maida's watching tonight. How are you? But yeah, we've had a very lively chat. Manny Jatillo. Some new names I'm not recognizing joining us tonight, maybe for the first time. That's awesome too. But let me remind everybody, if you would like to vote on which of Romero's big 3 zombie films you want to see us do a live commentary for, follow that link in the description and vote today. Let's see what the results are so far. Oh, goodness. Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead are now tied, and Night of the Living Dead is 1 vote behind them. So it is a tight race.
As much as I love the first film, I definitely think the other 2 would make for more entertaining commentaries just because of the content.
Right.
I don't know. Yeah,
it's out of our hands. It's up to Sausage Factory Nation. It's up to them. So, well,
so do the right thing and vote for Night.
But yeah, so to reiterate the plan for the first 3 episodes of season 6 of the Sausage Factory, tonight we talked about Romero's Dead films. Next Thursday we'll be discussing the rest of Romero's filmography, and then the following Thursday the live commentary for one of Romero's Dead films, the big 3. You guys pick it and we will watch it. So any closing thoughts on Romero's Dead series? I think we pretty much said it. He created an entire subgenre. I think we pretty much said it, to be honest. And if there's any of you guys out there watching who have not seen Night, Dawn, or Day of the Dead, go and watch them. So, but yep. So let's go ahead. Let's wrap it up. Orc, do you have a season 6 episode 1 Orc's Corner for us?
Yeah, I do.
Oh,
You want to fucking hear it?
Well, break us off some.
All right, here we go, boys. Tonight on Orc's Corner, the biggest meme of all time is about to unravel and make your fucking head explode. Here we go.
Don't
If
undersell it.
you could have a pizza with your favorite director, what topping would you have and why on the pizza?
Well, I often get extra cheese, which is bad for a lot of people because they find it heavy and it blocks them up. So I would get them constipated, whoever it is, probably.
What
Um,
I'd have bacon, and my director would be John Carpenter.
that's okay.
Oh, okay. I thought we were gonna do something like cool and like tie the topping in with the director.
Oh,
I was
I'm
gonna say
not
pineapple.
that clever.
Yeah, because
Pineapple and John Carpenter, because we're going to be smoking some dank shit. And that shit would be the bomb. Give me that pineapple pizza, man.
and or John Carpenter does not like cops or authorities, so no bacon. All right.
Oh, nice.
well, I know he likes mushrooms, so we're good to go there. Right?
As long as they're the magic kind.
You brought it back.
There you go, magic mushrooms and pineapple. There you go. There's your pizza with John Carpenter.
I would have eaten a barbecue pizza with Toby Hooper.
Oh, very nice.
And some Dr. Pepper.
Maybe extra cheese with David Lynch, because I just figure he probably wouldn't even touch the pizza. He would probably just like take some food, strange food that he had with him out of his pockets and eat that or something.
Just
Yeah.
get donuts. Get donuts is on the pizza.
He'd be like, I brought my own.
He had
Yeah,
a
he would take like a powdered donuts.
he had a
Puts it
milk
over the
he had a
pizza.
milkshake every day at 2:30 for 10 years at Bob's Big Boy.
Oh man.
Wow.
Pizza, huh? I don't know. Barbecue pizza sounds really good. Barbecue chicken pizza sounds really good right now.
Yeah.
Who would
Meat
I?
lovers.
You know, like Pizza Hut
Slow
has
for
like
Danny
some
Steinman since he did
limited
porn.
time I keep meaning to get.
What was that, Rambo?
Might as well meat lovers or Danny Steinman since he worked in porn. So
It's like Orc's job to like remind me of pizza every other day.
Tell you what,
I'll be talking to Orc and I'll just be like, so what's going on? I don't know, not much. Orc's like, you could get pizza.
I will
Get
I
Danny
suppose
Steinman
I-
with the
It's
meat
a
pizza. You got to
country,
put
I can
anchovies
do
on.
that.
we'll talk about Friday Part 5 and Voorhees titties.
An enchilada pizza with Danny Steinman.
There you go.
I say I will
You'll spend
have
some time in the outhouse after that.
a Philly cheesesteak pizza with an Iron City beer with George Romero. How about that?
Nice.
I'm sure he'd approve. Pennsylvania, so
Very
And a
nice.
pack of Marlboros.
There you go.
Well, he's no longer here with us, Jay, so you'd have to eat it by yourself. Are you cool with that?
Oh, we're talking about living directors? I will
yeah,
have
this is something that's actually going to happen.
a bag of powdered donuts with Alfred Hitchcock.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. In that case, I changed mine to Howard Hawks. Then, yeah.
All right, can I get a real talk?
Real talk.
Okay, real talk. Orcs Corner, episode 2, season premiere. Here we go.
Oh God.
What is your favorite audio commentary that you've heard and that you can remember listening to that you really enjoy?
oh man.
I've said it before on the show. My favorite audio commentary is the director's commentary of the film Dungeons and Dragons, because the lunatic who directed that and whoever's with him basically talk through the whole thing like they're super proud that they made this awesome movie, and it's quite incredible. I recommend it. to anybody.
I love the
Every scene, they
commentary.
just pat themselves on the back.
I love the commentary on the May DVD with Lucky McKee and Ryan Johnson, and they even have the food service guy. I forget his name, but he's got like a speech impediment,
Oh,
and it's just absolutely hilarious. It's hilarious.
There are too many to name, but the one I'll throw out there is the Trey Parker, Matt Stone, Cannibal the Musical commentary on
Yeah.
Trauma. Hilarious.
You've brought that up before, and I listened to it. It is a really good commentary.
Well,
they
I'll
just
vote
get more
for-
drunk as it goes on.
Yeah. Well,
what
you
I'll
have
vote
to.
for is, the deluxe editions Friday the 13th. Remember they came out? Part 5 is fucking hilarious, and Danny Simon is one of the reasons why it's so good. He just
Yeah.
talks about like porn and like people like fucking up and getting injured the whole time, and they're all laughing in the room where it's recording. It's hilarious.
And Paramount had a problem with Dead Pit putting their commentary on that disc. I have no idea why.
Kevin Smith, Ben Affleck commentary on Mallrats.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
I
That's
don't really have a
hilarious.
favorite, but I have an annoying one that I don't like,
Uh-huh.
and that's the 35th anniversary of Halloween
It's terrible.
release with
I was
Jamie
so
Lee
disappointed.
Curtis and John Carpenter.
John
Was it
Carpenter
bad?
barely talks, and Jamie Lee Curtis just goes, "Oh, this part was so scary. This part was so scary." And John's like, "Yes, it was." Like
That
that's
was
the
one
whole
of the big
goddamn
selling
thing.
points.
I
on
know.
that disc was the new
And
commentary.
That's
And that's
the
why
first
it's
thing I did.
disappointing.
I went home, popped it in, and had the same experience as Mike.
I remember.
It's just her going, "Oh, this part was scary.
Remember
Oh, I can't even watch this part because it's so scary."
If John Carpenter is doing a commentary without Kurt Russell, it's not good.
Well, don't listen to a John Carpenter commentary thinking he's going to talk about the movie either.
I
He's
love
talking about like
commentaries.
his kids and like what Kurt Russell's kids are up to and
He
shit.
mostly does in this, but the thing is, he just mostly just goes, to like the bullshit she says. He's like, "Yeah, that's right. I don't remember."
right.
Like he says barely anything, while she just
Well,
reacts to scenes. in the
Pass me
movie.
that hookah.
But her commentary with Steve Miner on H2O is bad too, because she goes, "Steve, I can't watch this. Is it gory? I can't look at this." Like she's never seen the movie before.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah, like what kind of actor are you? Been in the business, specifically horror movies, since the '70s, but
Yeah,
You're
she's
not
in the new one.
She's a goddamn princess.
yeah, I'll never understand why people love her so much. I don't dislike her. I'm not trying to tear her down. I'm just saying people love.
Have you seen the mirror scene in Trading Places?
Yeah.
Have you seen the film Perfect?
You guys just talking about
Activia.
nudity because her nudity does not impress me either.
Do you like yogurt, Cole?
Are you having problems going to the bathroom?
Are you
Well, after-
That's
you
really
eat
how
that-
I'm always going to like for me the earlier sexy stuff I saw her do was when she's sort of really embarrassing in what is it True Lies. Like True Lies, I just find that scene so embarrassing. So like that's what I remember as a kid.
I don't find it attractive at all, but a lot of people do, and that's great for them.
No.
Oh, I would never come down anybody for what they find attractive. I'm just saying, for me, I just cringe the whole time. I'm like, I feel bad for the character and the actor in this scene. Like,
I feel bad for old Barnacle.
Well, you know, Cole,
Oh!
after you eat all that super cheesy pizza, you're going to need some Activia.
I admit that she promotes a useful product.
You know what I'd like to see? I'd like to see Cole and Orc have their own Freaky Friday and switch places.
Okay, speaking of which, I was saying this to Jay. So, on Much Music, which is our like MTV equivalent, which now shows movies too, because why not and stuff. They always show movies. The last 2 days, they've shown like 4 body switching movies. 2 I didn't know even existed.
Oh,
Today they showed the terrible Freaky Friday remake with her.
Oh, yeah.
But yesterday they played a movie I'd never heard of called Like Father, Like Son,
Oh, George Burns.
Told you.
which had
Dudley Moore.
Dudley Moore
Oh,
and
Sean Astin.
Kirk Cameron.
Kurt
Cameron. I
Sean
had no
Astin.
idea. And before that, they showed one with Fred Savage
Yeah.
Vice
and,
versa.
and Judge
Yeah.
Reinhold. See, I knew
Perfect.
you guys
Both
were-
those are perfect movies.
And
I'd
then
never heard of either of them, and they played them like back to back.
and then right after those two, 18 again came out with George Burns and Charlie Schlatter, and then we got Big with Tom Hanks. Like
And then
right,
Dream a Little
Yeah.
Dream.
and Dream of a Little Dream.
I loved Vice Versa as a kid. I loved that movie.
Yes, yeah, those ones got completely by me. I never heard of them, had no idea they
Oh.
even existed.
I love when Judge Reinhold's playing as a child. He's so funny. He's like playing drums and stuff, like having such a good time in the mall.
Are we talking
No,
Beverly
no.
Hills?
Yeah, we got a band going. Hell yeah. Hilarious.
Well, guys, let's go ahead. Let's call it a night. Let's wrap up.
Every podcast ends when Judge Reinhold gets brought up.
No, it doesn't. It begins. Beverly Hills Cop, son. Let's go.
My name is Judge.
Come on, I was in Gremlins, but not Gremlins 2. You're right, I'll allow it. Like that's going to become its own trope in comedy. Judge Reinhold as a judge.
His best
Sorry.
film was actually The Happening. I loved him in that. I think I'm alone. All right, we're good then.
And on that, we're done.
Yeah, we're done. Let's
You
call it a
ruined it,
night,
Orc. You
guys.
ruined it.
Big thanks to everybody who
It's
tuned
going to be
in
a bad
tonight.
season. It's going to be a bad season. It's a bad feeling. You might want to tune out.
But big thanks to everybody who tuned in tonight. We appreciate it. We hope you enjoyed our part 1 of our George Romero tribute. We will return next week to discuss the rest of George Romero's filmography. And again, if you guys have not voted on which of George Romero's big 3 dead films you want us to do a live commentary for, use the link in the description and vote now. So anyway, until next week, you guys have a great week. We'll see you next Thursday live at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Have a great week. Peace.
Season 6.
Later.
Catch the fever. Bye-bye.